Break the sound barrier, and there's a sonic boom. You broke the time barrier, Flash. Time boom. Ripples of distortion radiated out through that point of impact, shifting everything just a tiny bit. But enough. Enough for events to happen slightly different. What is going on, guys? It's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel for another episode of the Legion Lounge Live. Tonight is a very special one. The Flash film has finally hit theaters, and I am joined by a very special guest once again, Daren. Welcome back to the channel, and we will be talking all the non-spoilery thoughts at first, and then going straight into spoilers. So, welcome back, guys. Daren, how are you doing?
I am good, man. It's crazy to actually think that we're at this point. Like, we've been waiting so long for this movie to come out, and it's out, and everyone's talking about it, and comic book Twitter is at it again. It's a crazy place once again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm ready to talk about the movie.
Yeah, it's been so long in the making. This is a movie that has gone through quite the developmental history. Like, this movie has been in a stage of development in one way or another since like the 80s. They've been trying to make a Flash film. Like the John Wesley Shipp Flash TV show, that suit was originally made for a or for a movie, not a TV show. Like, this movie has been just, tossed around Hollywood forever, and it's crazy to think that after all these years, we're finally here. The Flash movie has finally released. It's kind of, at the perfect time as well. It came out just a few weeks after the Flash TV show finally ended, and it's very fitting as well because we did get the casting for Ezra Miller as the Flash in the movies very shortly after Grant Gustin began his run as the Flash over on the TV show as well. So yeah, it's crazy that we're finally here. If you're joining us live, please put your thoughts about the movie down there in the comments in the chat, and we will be sure to read those out. Like I said, we will be starting spoiler free at first, and then I will make it very clear once we decide to hop into spoilers, because there are a lot of spoilers for this film. If you are lucky enough to have not had it spoiled for you already, can consider yourself one of the lucky ones, because I know I had a lot of stuff spoiled for me before I even went into the film. It didn't really negatively impact my viewing at all. I'm not so bothered by spoilers as much as I was in the past, but if you are somebody that is worried about that, definitely be careful. But starting things off, Daren, just what did you think about this movie? Just straight out of the theater, what were your initial impressions?
I mean, I don't know if I've ever been so conflicted coming out of a movie ever. I mean, there's so much that I love about this movie. There's so much that made my heart sing and made me so happy. And then there's such a pull at me as well of just things I wasn't a fan of, or things I didn't like, or things that, I possibly think that could have done better. And I think that this is such a unique movie. Like, I really don't think there's quite a movie like this movie in the way it's made, and the way it's come out, in the way that people are talking about it, in the way that it was promoted, like the way that we have going into this movie, and this kind of hype that we're going into this movie was unlike anything I've ever seen before. And it's really hard to get into what I liked or what I didn't like without diving too hard into spoilers. What I'll say is I think what it does well, it does really, really well. It really does. I think when they nail it, they nail it. But there are things that hold it back for me, and there are things that hold it back from being the movie that I ultimately think it could be. So I think my ultimate reactions are it's good, but it could be better.
Life is good, but it can be better. Just bringing that back. Oh man. No, I think the tagline that I used for this stream kind of rings true here. Is it's a fun film, but certainly flawed. And I think that's really the best way to look at it. There are a ton of really great ideas and concepts, and there are points where this movie just feels like a live-action comic book. And there are a lot of great ideas that are presented in the movie. Just not everything is fleshed out as much as I would have liked. Not everything is paid off, I would say, in a way that
Mhm.
would appease the masses and everything like that. So there are going to be a lot of decisions that were made in this movie that I'm sure the internet is not going to agree with. There's a lot of things that I think this movie did very, very well. Again, I think it definitely made me enjoy this version of the Flash a lot more.
Yes.
My biggest criticism going into it was that Ezra had never felt like Barry Allen to me. Not, and again, kind of like going towards the TV show as well, Grant Gustin is his own take on Barry Allen, not one for one Barry Allen from the comics, but this version of Barry in the movies has always been so different. A lot of people have said an amalgam of, Barry, Wally, some Bart thrown in there as well, but I think this movie did a very good job of showing who this version of Barry is, who he is as a hero, who he is as the Flash, what his motivations are, and where he started out from with the younger Barry character and how he kind of grew into the Flash that we see on screen in the movie for the majority of it. So, go for it.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Go for it.
I was about to say, I think like DCEU Flash has been very unlucky because I feel like this is really the first time he ever got the chance to really shine. Obviously he was just kind of thrown into that first Justice League movie and little cameos and like Batman v Superman and like Suicide Squad. And this is really the first time that this character has been able to really shine at all. Like maybe shine. It's very weird because like I think before this his biggest thing really felt like the crossover event. Everyone's like, whoa, he's finally here. And, I was very kind of curious going into this movie because I'm like, all right, like this, obviously there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that's an issue. But I was like, all right, I need to see this movie to feel like how I feel about Barry Allen because I never felt like he got a real chance to show what his Barry Allen is and what he kind of has to offer to that character.
Yeah, I totally feel that. This was the first full look at this character of the Flash. He's been a side character in a lot of movies. He's been cameos here and there. He even showed up on the during Crisis on the Arrowverse side of things as well. So it was nice to actually finally get a full length film, a full kind of look into the life of this Flash, of this Barry Allen, and I think they did a really, really great job of showing, again, kind of like that progression. Definitely felt very, very flashy, I guess is really the best way to put it, as this movie, again, felt very comic booky. It felt like they really wanted to, explore the Speed Force, explore Barry's powers quite a bit, explore, how he can use them, what the limitations of those powers can be. I think in some aspects, maybe the limitations came in at very awkward times. Like I feel like certain things, we can talk about this once we get to the spoilers, but just certain things Barry was limited on doing with his powers felt kind of odd. It felt like, oh, this is something that we've seen in the TV show, but he can't do it in the film for some reason. But other times he seems like super duper powerful, like there's almost no limit to his powers. So it was very weird sometimes how the power level of the Flash would go. But I think overall this movie did do a very good job at just portraying this character, and I guess making people that were maybe not as big of a fan of this interpretation maybe come around a little bit more on this character. So with that, what did you think about just kind of like the general plot setup of this movie without going into too many spoilers right away? What did you think about kind of like the general idea of this movie being kind of its own take on Flashpoint?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an interesting battle for me because obviously going in, I love that like Flashpoint movie and I love the Flashpoint story. I think it's one of, not saying I know a lot, I'm a Flash expert, but it is one of those like most iconic Flash stories that is very fun to tell. And I think that animated movie did it too well. Like they that movie that's in my opinion one of the best like superhero movies ever made. Like it's such a perfect film. And I think a lot of people wanted that movie. I think literally people wanted a live action reboot of that exact film. And as good as that could have been, and as much as I would have loved to have seen like Aquaman versus like Wonder Woman versus like crazy Superman, all these things that movie set up, and that like letter to Bruce Wayne. I did think this movie needed to do its own thing, and separate itself. And I think in many ways I loved a lot of things that it did. I will say I think the plot of the movie is one of my weakest points. Like when you kind of break down what the plot is, it's like, oh, I don't know if that fundamentally worked for me. And obviously we'll talk about that more once we get to it, and maybe what they could have what they could have improved on, or maybe what they did really well. But yeah, it was very interesting seeing this new take on Flashpoint, though, because there are so many. I do think there are so many versions of the story that could possibly be told, and this is definitely a version of that story.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think a lot of people go into this expecting the comic book story, expecting the animated movie story, and those are both so iconic. It would definitely be very hard to replicate. I think the movie did a very good job of pulling the aspects that they needed to from those stories that are obviously so popular within, the DC fan base, and then, bringing their own ideas to the table, expanding on certain things, going in different directions with other ideas. And while I don't think it lives up to that Flashpoint story exactly, while I definitely would prefer that animated movie or the actual comic book, because there just were a few elements missing. There were a couple of characters missing. There were a couple of just like big character moments that I missed from that original story. But I feel like the way that the movie set everything up, the way I feel like they visualized, once again, the Flash's powers, visualized the time travel aspect of everything, visualized this Flashpoint universe, kind of how they separated it from the main timeline. And just, I think overall, just the idea of the story that they were trying to tell, it had a really, really good foundation. And while it might not have been executed perfectly, I think in a lot of ways it still worked, and I still had a really good time. I still really enjoyed this movie. I had a lot of fun, and it was, just like that standard big comic book summer action blockbuster that just like, ooh, crazy visuals, ooh, funny moments. Like, this movie was actually really funny, at least for me. I a lot of the jokes landed. My theater was just like erupting with laughter. Like, I think that this was one of the funniest superhero movies in a while. And I know that, a lot of Marvel movies get accused of this, just trying to like interject jokes everywhere that they can. But I think in this regard, for the most part, a lot of the jokes did kind of land for me. How did you feel about them?
I liked some of them. Like, I think some of them did really work for me, and then there was others like there was a couple of where I was like, all right, that kind of broke the tension. Like there's one that I'm thinking of, which I can't talk about until we talk about spoilers, but where it's like, oh, I don't know if that worked in this scene, or I there is one. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on it, where I saw it before I saw the movie. Like, I saw it in like reverse. I saw the scene.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm like, what is happening? And
it
then
was me, Barry. I reversed
it,
the scene and posted it online, so you would take it out of context.
It is the funniest scene out of context.
Yeah,
it's the funniest scene in context as well, because it's
ridiculous, and it's right at the beginning of the movie too. Just we'll get back to it in a second. I just look at chat real quick. Chainsaw reacts. How's it going, man? Good to see you here. I think this movie had the Flash in it. Yes, it did. It had the Flash. It had multiple Flashes, but it didn't have
one.
It's missing one type of Flash. One type of Flash, and I will definitely talk about that a little bit later, is missing maybe my favorite type of Flash.
That Flash, okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were going with, like, Grant Flash.
Oh, well, like, it was missing that Flash as well, but a certain kind of Flash, sure. A Flash that might wear slightly different colors. We'll just say that. But, yeah, so there was the scene. This isn't really super spoilery, but there's the scene at the beginning of the movie kind of showing off Barry's powers, kind of like where he's gone to from the last time we've seen him. And I think the way that they visualized him running, like to get to this scenario, was very cool. I think the music worked really well. I think just the way that they showed how the Speed Force worked, how he was running, I definitely was a lot more okay with this running style because of during this scene. But we just see the most interesting Flash save of all time. And he uses some very unique methods of saving these CGI monstrosities. And yeah, I think that's about what I'll say right now. But if you guys know the clip that we're talking about, it's an interesting one. It is an interesting one for sure. I think that kind of brings us to another question that we can get into before spoilers, and that's the CGI. There's been a lot of discourse online about that. How did you feel watching it?
You know, I mean, I'll be honest, like, special effects and CGI isn't something that I typically, like, I can go through a lot of things and not notice, like, bad CGI. Like, it's just something my brain doesn't often catch. I will say, I think most of the first half looked properly good. Like I remember thinking, like, hey, this isn't as bad as a lot of people are saying. I did start to notice stuff in the back half of it. There are some shots, I think after a certain moment happens, I'm like, all right, I'm seeing some of the issues. But none of it, like, I'll be honest, none of it really bothered me. Like, it never... I know sometimes, like, bad CGI can take me out of a scene. It never really took me out too crazy much. Again, I might have to rewatch it. I don't know if it was just like my theater I couldn't notice. I didn't notice it here. If it was just, and again, maybe I need to rewatch it. Maybe I bet once I get it on like streaming or whatever, I'll be like, oh, okay, that could have used a couple more minutes of cooking, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like that was a question that was surrounding this movie before it even came out. People from when the trailers dropped, people were like, "Oh, the movie looks good, but the CGI looks a little wonky." I guess was the best way to describe it. I think for the most part, while I was actually watching the movie, especially where it matters, where it counts, I think the CG actually looked really good. I think it looked great when Barry was running. I think, some of the Speed Force things looked really good. His powers looked great when they needed to. And again, just the way that they visualized his running and the running style, I think looked great. But there were certain things that they tried to do in the movie with certain characters, creating certain circumstances that it just looked a little off, a little scary, a little like rubbery, and just like not quite right. And there's an article that I have pulled up that is from an interview with the director, Andy Muschietti, and he was talking about how the effects in the movie were somewhat intended to be how they came up. Let's see. Pull that up. Daren, you still with us?
I am.
Okay, you were loading for a second. But so the director Andy Muschietti said that the perceived weird VFX in The Flash is intended. The quote is, "The idea, of course, is we are in the perspective of the Flash. Everything is distorted in terms of lights and textures." Is that enough of an explanation for you, or do you think that was something that like just didn't work?
I think in some spots it works for me. Like, I don't think this is a thing where he's like trying to cover himself. Like, I think he actually meant, like, you can tell in certain scenes it is a stylized choice. Like a stylized choice. I think every time he goes into like the Speed Force, things are like a little rougher. Things are a little like more jagged and like 3D-ish. And I think all of that stuff works. I think it is when you get into the... I don't know if I should say exactly, but like towards the end, there's a thing that they start to show, and it's like, oh, yeah, that I don't think that was on purpose. Like, I don't think it should have looked like that. And again, like, like CGI is one of those things where I don't like slamming on it too much, because like those guys can do that better, way better than I ever could. Like, I could never put together what they do. So it's not, I don't like being like, it sucks. No, but no, you know, I think, I think it's kind of interesting actually, because like it was supposed to come out last year, but then they're like, you know what? No, we're gonna wait because a lot of these like special effects take longer. Like we need more time putting this together. I wonder. I wonder what it looked like last year, and like what this movie would have looked like if they didn't pause.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think where it matters, the CG looked really good, especially again in those earlier parts of the movie. I just feel like it's when we kind of get to, your big third act, big old battle sequence where you're just kind of in this big, vast, open nowhere, no man's land type of thing. You can kind of tell how it looks a little empty. It looks a little barren. And again, when we were kind of in this big sequence where we see some things, that look a little off. There is somewhat of an explanation for that as well. We'll get to that again a little bit later on with the spoiler section, but I think it's nice for him to come out and say, like, hey, don't worry, like, we didn't just, like, rush this thing. Things look good where they're supposed to look good. Things look a little bit warped and distorted and a little off where we intended it. Whether or not you, as a viewer, like the fact that it looks a little warped and distorted and you would have much rather it just kind of been, perfected CGI, that's all up to personal preference. But for me, it didn't bother me at all while I was watching the movie, honestly. Like, it does not negatively impact my enjoyment of it whatsoever. So, I think that's the biggest thing there is will it impact your viewing of the movie? And I would say no.
No. I know for like many people it did. Like, I know like this has been like the number one thing I've been seeing people hate on it. Like, I've been seeing people say, hey, it's pretty good, but like that CGI is rough. And I would argue, if the worst thing about your movie is bad CGI, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, if that's your only issue, that's the only thing I don't. Everything else was 10 out of 10. Then you have a great movie still. Like, I personally don't believe CGI can pull them. I mean, unless it's like the worst thing ever made. Like, if it's like 2002 level, like like digital effects and stuff like that, then yeah, I can maybe see that. But for the most part, I don't think like CGI alone could pull it down for me.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I still go back and watch older movies with perceived bad CGI by standards now, and it's like, it doesn't affect my viewing of the movie. It doesn't bother me. I'll still go back and play old PlayStation 2 games. Do they graphically look good compared to like these photorealistic things that we have nowadays? Of course not, but it's still a fun time. I still enjoy it. If I'm looking at it from a critical perspective, will the CGI quality in certain areas take down a little bit from my review score? Sure, it factors into it. If you're factoring in everything, of course that'll take it down just a notch, but it's not going to take it from like, a perfect movie to an awful movie like a lot of people are making it sound. It's not, it's not that bad. But was there anything else you wanted to talk about, I guess, spoiler-free wise, before we get into our spoiler talk? Because I feel like we're holding a little bit back now. We're getting to about 25-30 minutes in. I think it might be time to swap over.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a weird movie to kind of talk about without spoilers, because so much surrounding it is about like the plot and what happens. I would just say, like, kind of just my overall thoughts. I like it. Could have been better, and I can't wait to talk about what I liked and what I didn't like.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think that pretty much does it for me as well in the spoiler-free talk. So I'm going to put up our nice little reverse flash picture, our spoiler section picture. So just so you guys watching, if you're watching it live, so you know to turn away if you haven't seen the movie yet, if you care about spoilers. If you're watching it on playback, pause the video, save it to your watch later, and come back once you've seen it. But we are going to be...
me, Barry.
It was me, Barry. I spoiled the movie for you. But yeah, we're going to transition ourselves into spoiler talk now. Man, I can't believe Grant Gustin's Flash came in at the last minute and just straight up killed the Dark Flash and waved and ran away. Like that's crazy. I can't believe the movie just ended like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was real great.
So full on spoiler talk. Unfiltered, unrestrained thoughts. What are you thinking?
What was with the Barbie reference? What was with his like, "Come on, Barbie, let's go, Barbie" thing?
Oh, I liked that.
That's what he said.
You know, he's like,
it was fine. I just didn't get it.
He said, "Come on, Barbie."
Yeah.
And then he's like,
I was
"Let's go party."
Why?
And then they just ran. I've seen some people say that they were going to actually just like play the song just for fun, but because it was credited in the song list. But I think the fact that they just like quoted it, you have to obviously like credit it in there. So I mean, I guess they could technically copyright us for just saying it now. But you know, I think that's kind of what it was. It was just like a fun little reference. But I enjoyed it. I think that kind of goes hand in hand again with how funny this movie was. There were just a lot of jokes. I mean, a lot of jokes I'm sure that won't land for a lot of people, but I think the dynamic between our, you know, Barry, our main timeline Barry, and our young Barry just opened up for so much just fun back and forth between the two of them. Like, we got to see Barry in some sort of like a mentor role, because he had to teach this younger version of himself how to use his powers, you know, what he's actually capable of. One of my favorite things was the phasing. I thought that was super cool. I think it was super cool how they visualized it too, like actually showing kind of like the molecules and like, you know, going through the wall and like just how you know you vibrate your molecules through objects and stuff like that. I thought that just visually that was also a very cool idea. That was something that we never really got in the TV show. But you know, I think that visual representation of it was very nice. Just trying to think like anything massive in the beginning before we get into like main Flashpoint stuff, but I guess go back to just baby shower. That was I mean, that was odd.
I don't know. I loved that whole scene, but I was like, that's really funny, but I don't know if it's too fun. Like that seems like something you would see in like Shazam or like even like a Legends of Tomorrow or like a Doom Patrol. Very goofy, off the wall. I will say I loved him eating. Like, I love that whole like eating scene.
Oh
like,
yeah.
That I really liked that.
I just him just a snack hole like he was in Justice League.
I think that's such an I won't say interesting part of his powers, but I think that's such a unique like backfall to like how his powers work, is he always needs to eat.
Yeah.
And that's something that like the like show tried to do for a while, and then they just forgot. They forgot it was a thing.
Yeah, and they're just like, oh yeah, Barry eats these like super calorie dense protein bars all the time. It's like, don't worry about it. He gets his calories in. He's a good bodybuilder.
Honestly, I thought it may have came back at the end. Like I thought, like, because he kind of goes the whole movie without eating anything. Like he fights Zod like 4 times, and you know, like he fights like Dark Flash, and it's like you haven't ate for like 4 days, buddy. I think you should like recharge.
Yeah, maybe he was just, you know, sneaking. Maybe he snuck as many snacks as he could when he was in Wayne Manor.
Maybe.
he ate so much lightning. How about that? Speaking of lightning, I guess let's just kind of like run ourselves through the plot really quick. So we start off, we get our nice little save. It's very much so this movie's take on the beginning of the Flashpoint movie, with kind of like a big Justice League team up. We don't get a massive team up, but we get to see Ben Affleck's Batman. We get a nice cameo from Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. We get that classic Wonder Woman guitar riff. I'm always happy whenever we get to hear that, just like the yeah. So that's great. That.
How did you feel about her in this movie? Because she felt kind of out of place to me, and I don't.
Yeah. I well, if you know that there were multiple different endings for this movie.
Yes.
And one of those endings included her coming back. And I feel like if we had that ending, her being there at the beginning would have made a lot more sense. But the fact that she shows up for literally like 30 seconds and then dips, she's like, I'm Wonder Woman. Here's my guitar riff. Peace. Like that seems a little like out of place. It's like, you know, didn't need to be there necessarily, but I'm not complaining, you know?
I do think a lot of that, I would say a lot of this movie does feel very like cut up. Like I think there's a lot of things where it's like that thing was odd, but that was probably odd because they had to cut around it 15 times because each month we have like a new continuity. So I think that scene probably had a lot more Justice League members. Like I would not be surprised if we had Aquaman or like a Superman in that scene as well. Which is what I dream. Like that was my dream thing there.
Yeah.
Is like you started off with like just like how you started the like animated movie.
Yeah,
like,
is with them all there. So
that would have been a great little way to kind of like wrap up this franchise, I guess, is getting all the like team there one last time. But
but unfortunately Superman was relegated to you see him from behind on the news. So
that was a very like CW thing. Like CW does that all the times. They did that exact thing in Supergirl like 5 times.
I'm just surprised they didn't say he was off world.
Which I mean, I prefer that over like Headless Superman. So
yeah. But he was apparently supposed to be at the end of this movie as well. So
which I don't want to jump into the very end. Like I have thoughts on the ending.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I wish he was. Like I think, you know what? I'll just wait. You know, I'll just wait into it because that's a whole can of worms.
Yeah. But I guess this was kind of a surprise, I guess, for people who weren't watching the trailers. But we did get, I guess, one last appearance of Jeremy Irons as Alfred.
We know.
I mean, Ben Affleck's not coming back.
Well, yeah, but like they announced that he was in this movie a while ago.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I just saw that some people were surprised by it, so I didn't know if like they.
I liked seeing him. I think this is the most I probably liked him actually.
Yeah.
I thought it was very fun. I liked seeing him and Barry kind of like their back and forth.
Yeah. He's like, you know, Barry is like, I feel like I'm the Justice League janitor, just cleaning up really after nice everybody. Too. That was So that kind of sets the groundwork for him like start doing Flashpoint. Basically, is he kind of feels, you know, kind of beaten down, out of place. Like the league doesn't appreciate him for his power set and everything like that. Then, you know, his dad's parole hearings coming up, and you know things are not so great in Flashville.
I will say, and I don't want to go too off track here, but I do like how lived in this universe feels. Like I think just like with the stuff with him and like Batfleck and like Alfred, like in this movie there does actively feel like there is a Justice League. Like there is a team going around, and that's the first time I think this universe felt like that outside of Justice League itself.
Right.
And it was it's kind of frustrating because I'm like, we're finally getting this as we're getting rid of it, and I think that's very unfortunate. Like I wanted to see more of this in other projects, and I get they didn't have a chance. There wasn't a real opportunity to do so, but it made me. It was kind of like too bad we could have got like a Justice League 2 at some point to really establish this world and all that stuff, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were somewhat talking about this on Twitter earlier today, but as much as people like to hate on like all the Snyder stuff, like I'm not a massive like Zack Snyder fan as far as like thinking that that's the direction that these movies should have gone. Like I certainly have my issues with the way he was setting things up, but I'm not going to deny that he's a great filmmaker. The fact that he cast these roles really, really well, the fact that we had, you know, Henry Cavill Superman, Ben Affleck Batman, Gal Gadot Wonder Woman, like these are all in my mind like perfect castings. Like I think they worked really, really well in the movies that they were in for the stories that they were trying to tell. And it's definitely sad to see that this is kind of like the end. This is the bookend on that old DCEU and kind of sets the groundwork for our new DCU going forward, and unfortunately, this is kind of like a lost and forgotten universe now. If we're to believe these kind of rules of time travel that were set up, these, that spaghetti explainer, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah, I think just this universe as a whole is very frustrating, because I'm not quiet when it comes to, I'm not a fan of this universe. It's not my favorite DC universe. There's a lot I do not like, but I really just wish they committed to it. Like, there was so much of not knowing, like, like those first couple movies, obviously they had their fans, but there's obviously so much of, like, a, like, divide between the, like, Snyder fans and DC fans, and they almost spent, like, 10 years doing nothing with any of them. Like, I would have, like, this movie proved to me, like, I would have just liked to have spent that time exploring what it could have been in a world that maybe I wasn't the biggest fan of. And I don't know, like, I think, like, I've been watching the, like, old, like, animated, like, DC Universe movies and stuff, and I did not like how that universe started at all. I thought, like, Superman, Green Lantern, and, like, Wonder Woman, and all these, I did not like those versions of those characters at all. But I'm heading into Justice League War, and, like, I kind of love them all now. Like, I think they, like, as they didn't start off very good, they found who those characters were, and they transformed them into like a DC universe that people look back upon and they love them. Like, people love those movies now, and I kind of think that, like, the DCU could have done that. Like you could have turned a version of Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman that maybe weren't as popular back then, but, like, those are those characters now. And I don't know, I kind of wish they would have gone down that path, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of what could have been with this universe. Yeah. There were just so many stages that it went through. Like, I think I saw something, like, if we had gotten that original, like, timeline of movies where the Flash came out in, like, 2018 or something like that, we'd be all the way at, like, Justice League, like, 2 or 3 at this point, and probably the world would have been, like, destroyed 10 times over in here, and we would have already had Crisis and that nonsense going on. But it's definitely sad to see. It's sad whenever a director's vision is not allowed to fully come into fruition, but I feel like we're going in the best direction that we possibly can with the state that DC was currently in. It's obviously a business. They were not making money that they wanted to be making from these movies. They were not getting that return on investment. So the best course of action was to just get rid of the old leadership, bring somebody else in new, bring in James Gunn and Peter Safran, and say, hey, we've got this, failing universe. Please just revive it. So that's kind of where The Flash comes in. That's why there's so many different endings for this movie. That's why there's so many different versions of it. Why there's, like, a 4-hour cut somewhere out there that we're probably never going to get to see unless, somebody just decides to start, like, #release the Muschietti cut. But he seems to like this version of the movie. This seems to be, like, the definitive version. Yeah. I mean, I would expect we'll probably get some deleted scenes in a, on the Blu-ray release. Chainsaw says I want a 6-hour cut. Yeah, I'd watch 6 hours of this. That'd be fun. Just get more of Keaton saying, "I'm Batman."
I will say, I do think it needed to be longer. Like, as I was kind of thinking about this movie, I think it almost needed, like, a good... 4 hours is a lot. I don't think I want 4 hours.
I think it could have been 3 hours. I would have been okay with that.
I think 3 hours would have been a good amount, because there's a lot this movie did, and I think there's a lot they still needed to do that they didn't do. So,
like, almost if there was, like, a Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition version of this out there where they had, like, an extra, like, 20-30 minutes that they put back in the movie, I think that would be interesting. I think that would, imagine they did something like that as like a re-release, because I know it's not making the box office numbers that they want it to make. Maybe, a month or two down the line, they're like, oh, there's some extra footage. Would you like to go see the movie again? I mean, I would. I'd fall for it.
Too. Oh yeah, I would.
I literally
super fun edition.
I literally went to go see Endgame a second time for them to add that scene of, like, PS2 Hulk with the giant iPad. I remember all the memes. That was hilarious. That was definitely a waste of 3 hours to go back and see that movie like less than it wasn't that like it was a good movie, but like I definitely did not need to go pay to go see that again while it was still in theaters.
Sure. Oh my gosh. I honestly wish I saw it again, but I saw it when it hit like the Twitter and stuff, and I was like, that's rough. That's really, really rough.
Yeah. Chainsaw here. I want a version where it's just Keaton chilling in the mansion, eating food and drinking while scaring away potential people trying to show up to sell things that he doesn't need, being a grumpy old man. Yeah, just kind of like, stay off my lawn. I'm Batman. You want to buy a grappling hook? You want to buy a batarang?
Like Uncle Stan version.
Oh yeah, he's got the mystery shack. Yeah, the mystery cave. This is the batarang I use to take down the Joker. You want it? $50,000. No,
Okay.
actually, how much did this movie cost to make? Yeah, $300,000. That would be hilarious.
Oh, good old Michael Keaton.
He's great. He was one of my favorite parts of this movie.
I agree. I think, I think, there's certain bits of it where I was like, I don't know how, like, I think, I don't, okay, let's readjust. I think he was really good in this movie, but there were certain scenes where I was like, that's good, but I kind of want a little bit more out of you. I want just a little bit, and again, that's nothing to do with, like Michael Keaton. I think he was amazing. I think he was one of the highlights here. I just think, again, with a movie that's like 2:30, like there needed to be more,
something like that.
There wasn't enough time for everything, and there's a lot in this movie.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, there's one character which I'm seeing a lot of people love this character. I definitely did as well. That didn't have nearly as much screen time as seemed advertised.
Yeah.
And that was Supergirl. I thought that by the time we got to her, she was great. But she just wasn't in the movie as much as I would have thought, as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not her movie, but the fact that, she was doing so much press for the film, she was in so much of the trailers and things like that, it made you feel like she was a much larger part of the movie. Not to downplay her role, she definitely has a very important role in the film. I just would have loved to see a lot more of her.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly kind of feel bad for her because, I mean, this, like, she was announced to be coming into this, a good 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like a while ago, and that video of her kind of being like crying and being so gracious to be coming on this movie, it comes in and she's in this movie for like 15 minutes, 17, like a very short amount of time, and being promised a Supergirl movie, and then that getting canceled, and then all the stuff like surrounding this movie and its controversy. I do really hope that she is our Supergirl, because I think she's really good, and I think she is resonating with audiences, and I think she's just so different than every other Supergirl we've had, right? Like, I think so many of the, like, I think as much as I love the Supergirl show, I love that show, I love everything about it, but, a lot of that show is just kind of like female Clark. Like, I think that is what a lot of that show is, and I think she is able, like, I think she balances that, like, hope of what Supergirl is, but also that, like, she has that edge to it.
Yes. And I think that would work perfectly for Woman of Tomorrow, because that's definitely, that's a dark story.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of just, like, very much so things that you wouldn't expect a, Kryptonian hero to be doing, but doing that in that storyline, it's very interesting. And I do have this pulled up. That it was an article that came out pretty shortly after the movie came out. And again, something that we were talking about is Sasha going to be continuing in the role? I definitely think that she should. There's no like confirmation or anything that she's going to, but it's nice to see that she's at least met with the DC studio heads and everything like that, talking about her future in the role. From all the interviews that I've seen with her, she seems so excited about this movie. She seems so passionate about the role. It seems like it's kind of like a dream role for her. And I mean, you know, as somebody who loves superhero content and everything like that, if I ever got an opportunity like this, I would be promoting the heck out of it just like she is. I'd be just, you know, just the happiest person ever in all of these interviews talking about how great it is to play the superhero, to put on this suit and everything. So, you know, I think it would be a massive loss for DC if they did not continue with Sasha Calle as Supergirl. I think that she was one of the best parts of this movie, and I think that she should definitely continue, especially with how this version of the character was presented as much more of like a slightly darker take on Supergirl, someone who, you know, is just kind of getting their bearings on their powers, and they kind of explore that aspect that, you know, she might be a little bit more powerful than Clark just for the sheer fact that she's not holding back. I think that's something very interesting to explore as well.
Yeah, I in this movie, she definitely had a less, I wouldn't say less of a moral compass, but less of a, yeah, I mean, I guess like a more wider moral compass, where it's like, yeah, I mean, I'll save these people, but I'm also here to like kill Zod, and like, yeah, I really like that from her. I will say, and one thing I was thinking about this movie, I wish we didn't know about her in this movie, like, because like the like movie, like it aims it as like, all right, we need to go save Clark, and we need to go get Clark.
Right.
And like, you know, if you read the comics and if you read the anime, you watch the anime movie, you know, it is Clark Kent there. And I think like the whole movie leading up to like, let's go get Clark, it is very much like, oh, it's not Clark, it's Kara, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that scene when it pops out, it's Kara, I think would have been a really cool like theater experience to be like, oh, that's Kara, that's not Clark.
Yeah.
You know? I think that scene would have worked a lot better. I obviously get why they couldn't. They need to, you know, like promote this movie and all that jazz. But I think it would have been cool if no one knew. If that was a scene that like everyone was shocked by.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are so many moments in this movie that I wish I didn't know about going into it, and things that would have been such a much bigger surprise if we hadn't been told about them like months in advance, years in advance even. Did that again? Was that something that took away from the enjoyment of the movie? Not at all. But it's just a small little nitpick as far as like, I wish that we would have, you know, been a little bit more surprised with things. There were certain things that happened that I was surprised about. I was surprised that a scene that we saw in all of the trailers with Supergirl being at the end of the movie in that courthouse scene, I was surprised that wasn't there. We're kind of confused as to why that wasn't there as well, but it definitely surprised me.
Sure. No, that ending scene, it was a shocker. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah. We're close to it. We'll get to that in a second. There were, you know, like I said, there were supposedly like 3 different endings for this movie.
Yeah.
So the one that we got, and I'm seeing so many conflicting reports as far as who chose that ending. Was that a Andy Muschietti decision? Was that something that, you know, James Gunn, Peter Safran, once they came in, they said, hey, you know, we like the direction of this movie, but we want you to change a couple things so it fits a little bit better into our new DCU. I'm not really seeing what the full confirmation is, what the actual source is on that, you know, who's the one that actually had the say in that. So I'm not going to place the blame on anybody like I see a lot of people doing. There's a lot of unnecessary hate being thrown towards James Gunn, who literally had like nothing to do with this movie other than the fact that he came in as DC studio head like a couple months before it came out.
Yeah, it's weird because I definitely, all right, I do want to slightly talk, like, this movie was a lot less connected to build, like, I was under the impression that by the end of the movie we would slightly start to tease or, like, slowly start to set up this new DC universe. And, like, as it does do a couple of things, it is mostly standalone. Like, it is kind of completely on its own, doesn't really set up much for the future. And there's no, in my opinion, real reason that Henry Cavill couldn't be in this movie. Besides the fact that they would know people would, like, outcry that he's not our new Superman, right? I think that's the biggest thing, is they knew that they were recasting Superman, and they were like, you know what, fans are already upset that we we told people that he was coming back, and then we pulled him away. Just to have him at the end again would have been a very messy situation, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I have this interesting theory. I want to know what you think about it, and then we'll get back to kind of like the chronological order breakdown, because I know we've been getting a little bit off track here.
I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. It's
bad.
me too. I went down the rabbit hole. I just kind of like, campaigned our whole Supergirl movie right here. So I'm thinking jumping pretty much to the end of the movie. So after Barry has fixed Flashpoint and everything like that, we get back to what is supposedly the main timeline. Things are very different. We have George Clooney Batman, and we get also an F-bomb from the Flash. Wasn't expecting that.
I don't think I caught it.
No, so when he comes out of the car, he's like,
okay,
who
okay.
is that? Yeah.
I didn't even catch it. That's so funny.
So that was pretty funny. But the explainer of the multiverse, the spaghetti timeline thing where timelines are overlapping and everything like that. The Flashpoint timeline was obviously our Batman 89 timeline overlapping with our Man of Steel timeline, overlapping with this like Supergirl Red Daughter timeline, all into one. So this new timeline is still our kind of like main DCEU continuity timeline, now overlapping with George Clooney, Batman and Robin timeline, oddly.
Yeah.
But is this going to be our main timeline going forward? Or are we setting this up as Barry kind of yeeted himself out of the main timeline, and our main DCU timeline is completely separate from this, and now this is just an Elseworlds timeline that is kind of off in its own section of the multiverse, and we'll literally never see it again?
I think it's very clear that this is not our new DCU timeline. I think James Gunn's been making it very clear. This is something fresh. This is like, it's not going to be like an old Batman actor coming back. I think I personally really, I don't want to say hate it, because it wasn't a bad ending. I understand why a lot of people would like this ending, but I think they made a messy situation even messier. I think by ending your franchise on like a cliffhanger of sorts was not smart. Like, because I'm already seeing people being like, all right, when's Flash 2 happening? When are we going to see George Clooney's Batman again? And it's like, guys, I don't think we are. Like, I think, and I'm not saying never, because I someday we got multiverse stories. I bet we'll see them again. I really do. But I'm seeing so many. I think that just like confuses, because again, this is so messy. Like, the casual audiences don't know what the heck is going on over at DC. Yeah. They like turn on the Flash and be like, oh, I guess this new Batman movie's with George Clooney.
And it even confuses you more now that Andy Muschietti is directing this Flash movie, or the Batman the Brave and the Bold movie.
Yeah.
So why would he put George Clooney Batman is at the end of this Flash movie for like no reason?
Yeah.
It's really weird. I saw the idea thrown around there too. The fact that this picture that they keep using is Dick Grayson Batman with Damian Wayne Robin. So what if George Clooney is the Batman, is the Bruce Wayne, but like their main Batman is just going to be Dick Grayson, so they're still open to like not recasting, but casting a new actor for Batman, that type of thing. How do you feel about that?
I think that'd be a terrible idea. I really do.
I just hope it's its own timeline, or its own universe.
The whole point in doing this is to have a fresh start.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not against seeing George Clooney again. In 5-6 years, I'm down going back and doing like an Elseworld story. That's fine. Just market it as I don't know. I was, like up until this point, I was having a great time, and I don't know, this scene really took me out of it. I was like, what did I just watch? Why would you do that? Why? And I don't know how you end a franchise like this. Like, I don't know if there's a good way of ending this movie. I honestly thought you were going to do a like a Spider-Man ending where like Bruce, he gets out of the car and he's like, oh, what the F? And you just cut. Like you don't see anybody. It's just a blank slate, and anything could happen there. And I think that may have been a a little bit of a better. I don't know. I guess people would still want to know who that was. I guess, but
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I think you I think you should have ended it either in a way where you do lead into your new universe, this being a very blank slate and you can kind of do anything. Like I know a lot of people wanted to do the whole like face changing thing with like Ezra Miller. He transforms into a new Flash, and then your new universe is a very blank slate. But I think, I think having this ending, having your reboot next year with like Blue Beetle, and then you have Aquaman. Where now I'm like, all right, is Aquaman this new timeline? Is it this fractured timeline? Is it the original timeline? Is this like a prequel to Flash? It could be anywhere.
It's so like the more you think about this ending, the more it confuses you. We're gonna let that sit for a second, just kind of marinate. Gonna address chat really quick here. Yeah. Kata, how's it going? I hope you are enjoying the future on your lunch break. And Hero's Journey, how are you doing? Good to see you here. I hope you're doing well.
Howdy.
I am doing well as well. And are we going to be on Lance's stream tomorrow? That stream is actually going to be on Tuesday. Same time.
Tomorrow for him.
Yeah, tomorrow for you. But it will be Tuesday our time. Yep. So it'll be one day after you would normally see it, but same time.
Talking about all this stuff again.
Yes. But in even more detail.
Very much so.
Even more detail. But just I guess my overall idea on that is it's very weird the way that they ended things. From looking at what the other potential endings would have been, I would have much preferred any one of those over the ending that we got. I think that that's one of the very few things in the movie that I had an issue with. I think the first couple of acts of the movie were borderline perfect, but it really starts to fall apart there in that third act when we bring back, the Dark Flash, who we didn't get to talk about very much at all, or didn't get to see very much at all. When, it's like, oh, all of a sudden the multiverse is collapsing and just like all this nonsense. And then we bring back George Clooney Batman without really any explanation. And the way that we just leave off this universe, it's like, I thought that this was supposed to be kind of like catapulting us into this new DCU and kind of erasing all of this like weird timeline mess ups and stuff like that from the past. But no, it almost left us with more questions. So it's very, very interesting. Before we get back to the rest of everything, back to chat a little bit. Kata said that he actually loved this movie. Well, I'm glad you did. I really enjoyed it as well. I think it's a really fun movie. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not without flaw, but I think it's very fun. And then Hero's Journey says, are we going to be watching Secret Invasion on Wednesday? Yes, we will be talking about it over on Daren's stream, The Pipeline, Wednesday night. Very excited. That's
going to be such a crazy night, because I'll be honest, guys, I did not know Superman Lois and Gotham Knights was back this week. I thought it was next week. I was like, all right, we'll do Secret Invasion this week, and then next week I can split it up into 2 streams. And I was like, no, that's this upcoming Wednesday. Like, that's this week. So we got, like, Superman Lois, Gotham Knights, Secret Invasion, the, like, Avatar stuff that came out, like, Superman Lois news that came out. Like, there's so much on Wednesday. I'm super excited to talk about. All right. So, like, self-promotion's over.
Oh, yeah. No, we can do more self-promo at the end. And speaking of the end, Hero's Journey said that the ending didn't feel very superhero at all. Yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking as well. It just kind of, it felt like another just like random cameo. They were like, oh, the audience is going to flip out if we put George Clooney Batman here. And then that kind of goes into your next comment here, saying that Eric had a theory that George Clooney Batman is an old Bruce Wayne, but not Batman. Kind of talking about what we were just talking about. I was kind of referencing that as well. Is Dick Grayson is Batman within the Brave and the Bold reboot, and sure. it would make sense, because again, that picture that they're using for Brave and the Bold is actually Dick Grayson as Batman next to a Damian Wayne Robin. Could they do that? Yes. Could that also take away some of the confusion of having a Robert Pattinson Bruce Wayne off in the Matt Reeves Batman universe and having this Batman just be completely separate? They could totally do that. But again, I just don't see this, the way that they ended this universe off, being the main DCU timeline going forward. I think the fact that they explained that there is a multiverse, how all of these things can overlap, how certain things can be the same, but certain things can be different. I think it shows you that, hey, Barry messed some stuff up. He's off in his own timeline doing his own thing now. We might not ever touch this timeline again outside of possible Elseworld stories. I think that that's maybe where they're trying to leave us off. I could be interpreting it completely wrong.
Yeah.
But that's just almost where I'm feeling like we're ending things here. And I think that would be better.
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think people want an old Batman like full time. Like I think that's such a waste of a DC because like the biggest thing, like I remember when Michael Keaton was almost announced to be our new main Batman, people hated it. People were rioted. Like, we don't want an old Batman, we want Batman. And, I think, Batman Beyond and stuff like that is very popular, and people love those stories, but I don't know if anyone wants, at least to start off, Dick Grayson as our main Batman. I don't know if that's what people really want to see. And if you're going to do that, just keep Michael Keaton. He was in the whole movie. It would make more sense to get in a movie with Michael Keaton as Batman, and then the whole Sasha thing, which was... I don't understand.
Oh, man, now you're bringing up the whole fact, too. If Michael Keaton would have stayed as Batman, bringing up the whole thing, the canceled Batgirl movie, we have an entire Michael Keaton Batman performance that we're never going to get to see.
Yeah.
That just made me even more sad.
Which, I looking at what they're doing, I kind of get why it was canceled at this point. I really don't think it was about quality anymore. I really think it was
there was no way to fit it. It was almost no way to fit it into the timeline.
It would make no sense now. Absolutely not. I would have loved if they marketed it as Elseworlds, where it's this is off in some other multiverse.
And I thought that's kind of what they were doing anyway. Is I thought it was, especially since it was going to be airing on HBO Max when it was HBO Max or Max in the States, and then theaters internationally.
I would have, I would have taken it if they're just if they had just have James Gunn at the start of it being hey guys, this movie doesn't make any sense anymore. Just kind of throw it away, but you can see it anyway. This makes no sense. Here we go. And I would have been all right, at least I get to see this thing.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for her though. I really, really do. I cannot imagine working years on a movie, on a project, and it just never seeing the light of day that. Yeah, it was done. Finished.
I hope they bring that actress back to play Batgirl in this new DCU. She deserves a chance to actually play the character.
I agree, but I don't know if I would. I can't imagine wanting to go back to that. Filming an entire movie and then be hey, do you want to make that same movie again?
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
There's got to be some clause in the contract now. It's you cannot cancel this movie. It has to release.
Sure.
Or,
pay me a lot of money.
Oh, man. Go back to chat really quick, and then we'll get back to the spoiler talk. Hero's Journey. Comic-Con next month could clear things up since DC is going to have to explain this new James Gunn universe. Yeah, I hope so. I
think we're going to get a lot of DCU stuff at Comic-Con. I think we're going to get Superman legacy castings. I think we're going to hear about Sasha. We might hear about a Batman casting as well, and that comes out a month before Blue Beetle. So I think we'll hear more about where Blue Beetle takes place, what its deal is, and also Aquaman, because they need a trailer for Aquaman now. It comes out in what? 6,
oh yeah,
5
there's.
months?
Don't even get me started on what the heck's going on with Aquaman 2. I don't honestly, even want to jump down that rabbit hole.
I would cancel Aquaman. Aquaman feels like the one you'd want to cancel by this one, because it's so I don't get why you just don't have it come out in front of Flash.
Yeah, it's weird, especially from that. The post-credit scene. Kind of.
That's the thing. Where it's messy, man. It's really messy.
It is. Kato was saying don't remind him of the Michael Keaton Batman, or of the canceled Michael Keaton Batman stuff, because he was the highlight of this film for him. Yeah, he was great, especially if you're a massive fan of the '89 Batman. Like, you got kind of everything that you needed from this. You got him suited back up again. He was doing cool stuff. He said, "I'm Batman." He said, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." Like, he was great, and the theme too, just that classic '89 Batman theme. The amount of times that they played it too, it was so good, and it just, like, I had a big smile on my face the entire time. Got a few chats in here from Defunct. Been lurking because they've been doing stuff, cool discussions, really enjoyed the film. I don't think that they landed in the DCU. I think it'll start in another timeline. Yes, definitely agree with that. Also, didn't James Gunn say The Brave and the Bold was the story of Bruce and his real son Damian? That is true.
They did.
Yeah.
They did say that.
Plus, don't think they'll leave out the option of an actual Nightwing. Yeah, I agree with that. I want them to be in their own separate universe. Give us a Bruce that's kind of like, maybe like mid-30s, I think would be maybe the perfect age there, kind of like in that 35 to 40 range. He's been at it for a little while, but he's not like, your 50, 60-year-old grizzled veteran Batman, where we could be getting like a, at that point, might as well just do Batman Beyond with Terry McGinnis.
Yeah.
So
I'm still silently hoping for like a Jensen Ackles Batman. Like, I think he's still my like number one pick here.
Hero's Journey said that there was a mention of the Aquaman villain. Not sure if you want that spoiler. I mean, I don't care. I'm down. Let me know. put it in chat.
Is it not Black Manta?
Yeah, I would think it would be Black Manta from what they were setting up at the end of the last one. But let us know, and we will discuss it. But back to the movie. Barry's feeling, world is against him. He's sad Flash. He tells Bruce that he can time travel, that there's a chance to bring both their parents back. And Bruce is like, "Nah, bro, that's a bad idea. Our tragedies are what makes us heroes." And he's like, "Sure, Bruce." And then we get Iris. Iris is in the movie a little bit. What did you think of her?
I love this Iris. I think I've loved her since, like, what was it, Justice League that we saw a little bit of?
Yeah.
I've always, again, I think this actress been through a lot, because she was like she was in the Justice League movie, and then she was cut. And then she was a part of the Flash movie, and then she was like, they recasted her, and then they brought her back. They were like, actually, she's good. Let's just bring her in here. And I thought all her stuff was very fun.
Yeah.
Very, like, I don't know. Like, she didn't do much here. She was kind of just like Ezra Miller had a crush on her since, like, what, college or or, I'm sorry, Barry.
Yeah.
Had a crush on her since, like, college and stuff, and I think she played her role. I also would love to hear what your thoughts are, and I think who was Patty and Julian, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Patty Spivot and Albert Desmond, who is the
Albert. Okay.
Yeah, so they changed his name for the show, gave him the Julian Albert name, but I believe the comic character is actually Albert Desmond, which is the character that they used in the show or in the movie. Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. It was like, seeing new versions of these characters that we've already seen. They didn't do too much. They were in a little bit at the beginning of the movie to just kind of show his CCPD life, and then in the Flashpoint timeline a little bit just to kind of show the differences and everything. But I didn't think they did too much. They didn't do a lot in this movie, but they're fine. They're fine.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, kind of like, there's still part of me that wishes that was the movie. Was more of just like kind of Barry Allen in Central City doing Star Lab stuff and, like, Iris stuff, and I don't know, like, that's still a movie, not this exact movie, but that's still the movie I want to see at some point. I want to see Barry very more so grounded, facing off against his city villains and stuff.
Well, it was
a couple of years.
Yeah, it was nice to see the CSI aspect a little bit. I think that was something that was severely lacking from the show. Towards the end of it, like, we just didn't get enough, like, CSI Barry, and I always thought that was interesting. Like, I literally took a forensic science class in high school because of the Flash. And it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Like, I could take like a random, like, science elective. I was like, forensic science. I'll be like Barry Allen. It was cool.
That's sweet.
It was cool. But yeah, so I was glad that we did get a little bit of that. Hero's Journey did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just saying Hero's Journey updated us with the Aquaman rumor. Aquaman and Black Manta team up buddy cop style to stop a water monster has been compared to a Green Lantern movie villain by viewers. Interesting.
I've heard about the like buddy cop comedy type thing with like Arthur and Ocean Master, which sounds good to me. Like I think that's okay. As long as they don't tease people with the whole Black Manta thing, because that's what they did in the first one, where it's like Black Manta's a villain. Actually, no, we're actually saving him for part 2. So as long as he's ultimately the still like, I wonder what they were doing, because he was supposed to be the villain for 2, and then they announced that like that one other spin-off movie was like going to be like a Black Manta movie.
Oh yeah, what was it? The Trench?
Yeah. So I wonder, maybe they were doing the movie and then they were going to set up for 3. I hope that's not the case. I hope he's still the villain of this movie.
And wasn't the actor that played Black Manta, he played Dr. Manhattan in the Watchmen series, I think?
I didn't watch Watchmen.
I believe, I didn't watch it either, but I believe that that's the same actor. I could be wrong, but I chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the same actor.
Sure.
One more thing, defunct, the move or the moment in the Flash that made me laugh the hardest was the visual gag of young Barry turning his head in the Keaton Batsuit just before the big battle. I was still laughing when they were fighting. Yeah, that was hilarious. Bro's just like, yeah, like when they were dropping down, the mask is like not fully on his face, and he just kind of like turns at Barry. He's like, "Help, please." Kata says, yes, same actor. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm glad. Here's Journey. Should have clarified it was early screenings, not a rumor. I forget if it was early screening for the movie or a trailer. Okay. So yeah, it might have been those test screenings that we're hearing about. That are definitely getting mixed reactions.
I've not heard a single good thing about that movie.
No. Yeah, but here's the thing. I was shocked that the first Aquaman made like $1 billion. Like, it's a good movie, but it made $1 billion. Oh, yeah, no. So like, I don't know how this movie could be bad. But
yeah, I'm very curious how the box office looks, because I think, you know, back in 2018, superheroes were much more popular than I think they are now. I think people are getting a little bit tired of them. That like December, there wasn't much else in theaters. Like it pretty much like dominated the holiday weekend. And I know this December, I don't know what all comes out, but I know it's going against Wonka. Like I think they come out like the same day. Like I think it's like the same weekend they both come out. So I think Wonka might be the like Christmas movie of choice. So
okay.
I'm curious.
Interesting.
Especially after Flash, because I thought Flash was going to do a lot better than it currently is doing. And I think Flash is bigger than Aquaman.
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. I think it is too. I mean, this is the big. This is the thing. This is the big universe reset.
Sure.
But speaking of universe reset, I've seen a lot of people say that this is like their favorite scene in the movie. Is where we have Barry standing outside of his childhood house when he's talking to Bruce over the comms and everything like that. Or no, he's not talking to Bruce. He's talking to his dad.
Yeah.
Because he was talking about the trial and everything like that, and kind of like reliving the the fateful day where it all happened and everything like that. And he's standing out there in the middle of the street at night and everything. And then that's when we get that's when we start going. Like Barry just runs himself into the Speed Force. We get our first look at this kind of like the Chrono Bowl that we've been hearing so much about. And Barry kind of figures out that he can actually time travel. He can actually do this. And, you know, he thinks about that, you know, what the event was that caused the death of his mom. And it's this very simple thing. And it's that his dad was out of the house because he needed to go get to this can of tomato sauce for the spaghetti. And I think it's really interesting how spaghetti comes up multiple times in this movie in like the weirdest way.
It's like the main theme. Yeah.
It's like for whatever reason they just had this obsession, like everybody wanted spaghetti. But what did you think about this being the like catalyst for Flashpoint. Like it's a little bit different from what we've seen on the TV show, what we've seen in the comics and the movie. Did this work for you? Was this, not how you wanted them to take it?
No, I mean, I didn't have too much of an issue with anything they did. There is definitely moments in the early on in this movie, and this is nothing against the movie. This is my own like mind being mean, where there's moments, especially with like young Barry and like the Henry Allen stuff and all that stuff. Like there's as good. I'm like, this is really good, but there's the tiny guy at the back of my ear that's like the CW show did this a little bit better. I was like, stop it, and like there's a thing where it's like. This I like this father a lot, but he's no John Wesley Shipp. And no, I thought everything that they I loved the mom. I think the casting of this mother was absolutely amazing. And like young Ezra Miller, they must have cloned this kid. Like he looks just like a young Ezra Miller. It's insane.
The technology that they did was very interesting. If you've seen like the behind the scenes stuff, where I don't think they did like multiple takes of the same scene. It was literally just a body double, and they kind of like CG'd his face over him or something. It was very interesting. But if you see it, they basically just used like his stunt double or something as that younger Barry. And it was very interesting. I'd say definitely look into it if you're interested in that kind of like whole filmmaking process. But I think that was done very well. I know some people were saying that you could tell in certain circumstances, like which Barry was the real Barry, which Barry was the fake Barry. But I think it worked pretty well.
I couldn't.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell. Like I think I don't want to jump ahead again. I promise I won't. But like a lot of this movie is featured. Like a lot of this cast, a lot of the screen time is just Ezra Miller.
Yeah,
like. I remember last year or like 2 years ago when a lot of this controversy came up and people was like, well, just like recast Ezra Miller, put like Grant Gustin in there and just like redo his scene or their scenes. I'm like, watching this movie, you have to remake the entire movie. They are in 96% of this movie. It's insane.
Yeah. I think that also brings me to an interesting spot. Something that we talked about a lot before the movie came out, and that was separating the actor from the character. And I think that was something that I was able to do very well when I sat down and I watched this movie. I kind of, was like, all right, we're going to forget about everything that happened outside of it and just watch it and experience it and just enjoy it. And I think just from a purely like objective standpoint, Ezra did a really, really good job in this role, or in both of these roles. Like, it is crazy how they literally pulled double duty playing two different characters, two very distinct, very different characters throughout this entire movie. One is our much more mature Barry, kind of our that turns into like a more so of a mentor Barry at times. And then this younger Barry who is just kind of like thrown into all of this, who's given powers, who has to kind of be the main Flash for a little bit because that whole scene takes away our main Barry's powers. And that also leads to a pretty funny scene where he was trying to run around the CCPD area without his speed, and he just looked like a complete goof. And I know people are taking that scene way out of context as well, but it's hilarious.
No, I mean, I think, I think some of this movie, there's some downfalls here, but I think he is, or they are one of the best performances in like a superhero movie I've seen in a while. Like they did a really good job here. And like I was thinking again, kind of going into like the Grant Gustin thing, a lot of people were like, well, just bring in Grant Gustin and have him play the shot. Grant Gustin could not have done this role. Like the Grant Gustin Flash is so much different. Like they are like fundamentally different characters. I cannot imagine Grant Gustin playing that real silly woohoo kind of Barry Allen.
Yeah, that would not have worked at all. It's interesting. Like I don't think the movie would have been where it was without Ezra in this role. And I think no matter what, like I'm not saying like that what they did was, but you got to kind of just forget about that as you're watching the movie and just kind of absorb it for what it is. And again, kind of look at it just from that creative aspect. Obviously, people that were, impacted by that on a personal level, that's a completely different story. But, just viewing it as a fan, that's kind of as far as I wanna go into that. But I just kind of wanted to, I guess, say my piece on that and just say, just from a viewer perspective, I think they did very well. And it seems like, things are looking like they're going down a better path. Is how I'll leave that off. But speaking of a darker path, a Dark Flash, perhaps, we get our first glimpse of the Dark Flash. Kind of just pushes Barry out of the Speed Force. They look pretty cool. All the spikes, all the purple lightning definitely gives a nice extra point for me. But
yeah, no, I thought it looked really cool. Like, I know, like, when that like Funko thing came out, or like the action figure thing came out for him, everyone's like, what is this thing? What the heck is this thing? He looked really stupid. But I think in the actual film itself, he looked really cool. Like, I actually kind of I don't want to jump ahead because I assume you want to talk about that towards the end, but like, I wanted more. Dark Flash.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into to Dark Flash while we're on the subject. Basically, Dark Flash ended up being this movie's take on Savitar. It was just
100%.
a version of this young Barry who, during this final battle was getting, different pieces of Kryptonian technology kind of just like stuck in him and everything like that. And just kind of broke, basically. Just they were in this like time loop trying to fix everything, and just went down this dark path, and was created when Barry made Flashpoint. And I think it makes a lot more sense than Savitar. Like, we know a beginning. Like, we actually kind of know where his timeline is in this movie. Unlike Savitar, we don't really kind of know what came first, the Time Remnant or Savitar. Like, we know how Dark Flash was made in this. It was because Barry created Flashpoint, and because Barry created Flashpoint, he gives this young Barry powers. Because this young Barry has powers, they go into this final battle, and because they go into this final battle, stuff hits the fan. Batman dies, Supergirl dies, and they try to fix everything, and that sends this young Barry down the path of the Dark Flash. And that's why when the Dark Flash tries to kill our main Barry, but kills young Barry instead, that literally just just completely erases both of them.
Yeah. And
it's a nice, like, closed loop there. So there's no question of, like, could the Dark Flash come back? What is I think that was ended off in a very tight-knit way, but I just wish we did see more of them as an actual villain.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, I kind of want to talk about that when we get to the Zod stuff, because I think they go hand in hand on how I kind of think maybe things should have gone. But yeah, I mean, looking at, there's been a lot of, like, comparing Dark Flash to Savitar, a lot of it recently. The internet doing, which one is better, and I really wish they could, if you could, like, combine certain elements of both of these characters, if they could be top tier villain, period. Like, I really think if you would have gave Savitar this kind of story, like, Flash Season 3 would have been so good. Like, instead of doing the whole Time Remnant thing and killing Iris, it's literally, like, it's in the Flashpoint season, right?
Yeah.
Like, you literally have just Savitar be the Barry that keeps trying to save his mother. Like, that's that version of Barry. And I think, and then, what the show obviously has is that really cool suit and a really cool voice, and 23 episodes worth of time with this character, probably not full 23, but like 19 or so episodes or whatever. The fully flesh him out as a cool villain. And weirdly enough, I felt like, again, Dark Flash made more sense with about 3 minutes of screen time than Savitar did with 20 some episodes. I think that was very So again, if you merge these two villains, I think you could have a sweet villain.
Going back into chat, Hero's Journey basically saying that Dark Flash was made specifically for toys. Definitely, I'd say that was an aspect of it, I'm sure. I think the toys definitely didn't do this character justice. I think Dark Flash looked cooler in the movie than the Funko Pop or the action figure or anything like that. But yeah, definitely in a lot of ways. That's why all these suit changes are in things, just so that they can sell as many toys as possible.
Sure.
Defunct, it was much more believable than how the series did it. He wasn't trying to be evil because he was hurt. He was naively trying to fix things. Yeah, and that's kind of what Daren touched on. There was definitely some bit of like a noble cause in there, a path that Dark Flash was trying to go down, that he thought he was doing the right thing, but in the end kind of realized he was causing more harm than good, which obviously led to kind of like the collapse of the multiverse pretty much. And then one more, Hero's Journey. Which other speedsters would work in the movie? I have one. Give me,
Go ahead.
give me 2 seconds. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
I gotta make this bigger. Okay. Transition to it while we talk about it. This man right here, Mr. Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash. That brings me, I really appreciate that comment, because that brings me to maybe my biggest, maybe not issue with the movie, but the biggest thing missing from the movie is we did an entire Flashpoint storyline without a mention of Thawne, without a mention of the Reverse Flash at all. We're led to assume that Barry's mom just died under suspicious circumstances because his dad wasn't there, the door was open or something, and somebody came in, stabbed her. Who could that have been? Other than ya boy, Eobard Thawne.
I very much think they were setting him up for a sequel. Like, I 100% think they left a lot of open doors just in case they got a sequel. And I think that was the case. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not upset he wasn't in here. I think, especially now, like, knowing that we're resetting, I'm very glad we didn't do Eobard Thawne here, so we can do it later on in our new timeline. And I think, I know you probably want to talk about Thawne here for a couple minutes, so I won't dive into it too much. But I think Dark Flash could have been a good replacement for Thawne. Like, in this movie, at least. Not to kill his mother, maybe, but like as that character, as the Force. And I think, as I assume we're on, I think there was a villain problem in this movie. Like for me, that was my biggest issue in this movie. I think was there was never a clear threat. Like, they tried it to be Zod, and I never got that. They tried it to be Dark Flash, and, it's like they tried to push both in there, and neither of them, I think, were really pushed to the villain status. So I wanted them to push at least one of them to full villain status. You could have done Zod. Like, you could have made a really cool... Zod didn't work for me, because Barry and Zod really...
No, Zod was Kara's villain, 100%. Yeah. Zod didn't really matter to Barry. He was just kind of like a set piece.
Which is fine if he didn't have so much screen time. Like, Zod is in a lot of this back half of this film. He's treated as the main villain. So I either would have had Zod be a more personal villain to Barry, which I think could have worked. I think could have been cool if they framed it properly, or do what the animated movie did, where it's like, all right, you have this big threat, like your big thing is like Wonder Woman versus the like Aquaman. It's this giant war. But while all that's going down, like, Thawne is just like beating the crap out of Barry. Like they are having their own separate mission elsewhere, their own separate battle elsewhere. Elsewhere. I think that's what this movie's missing, is those stakes, that personal thing with Barry. And I don't think Barry really had a personal villain here.
Yeah. In many ways, Barry's villain was, with the Dark Flash, Barry's villain was himself. And it was kind of that classic, who's the villain now, Flash? Who's the villain? Yeah. Like, I didn't do any of this. You did. You went back in time. You saved your mom.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, no, I'm saying I love that. Like, that's, I think Dark Flash is a really cool villain for this movie. I just wanted more from him. I wanted to see, like, because he shows up and he's like, all right, this is who I am, and he dies like 3 seconds later. Like, as soon as he's on screen, they're like, all right, cameos, and then when we come back, he dies. Like, there's nothing there for him. And I think, again, like, that extra 15, 20, 30 minutes, I think could have done wonders for him.
Yeah. I do as well. Another thing, like, even if we didn't see Thawne, even if he wasn't like physically there, we didn't get a casting or anything like that, I would have at least liked a scene at the end where Barry's like, he's curious, right? So he goes back and he, has to allow his mom to die, right? He has to, take the tomato sauce out of the basket so she forgets it and everything like that. He fixes it so his dad will like look up and see the camera, and they'll be able to exonerate him in present day. But why does Barry not get curious and go back to the house and see what happened and see who actually killed his mom? Like, maybe if we would have just seen a red and yellow streak, and then she's dead, and he's like, another speedster, and that's how we end off the Flashpoint timeline. And then we go back into our main timeline and everything like that. I think that even if we didn't flesh out the Reverse Flash, just let the audience know that, yeah, for sure, he's the one that killed Nora Allen. I think even Andy Muschietti has come out and said that it's supposed to be implied that obviously the Reverse Flash did kill her. But I just would have liked that addressed.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, I wonder. I really do think Thawne was going to be a sequel. I really, really do. I wonder if there was, because again, there seems like there was a lot cut here. This whole movie feels like the whole thing just like took scissors to and just started cutting here and there, and so I would have believed that there was some version of Thawne in this movie. I even thought going in, like, could Dark Flash be a version of Thawne? Like,
because he looked a lot like that Thawne suit that we got at the end of Flash season 8.
Yeah. I mean, I could have seen a really cool world where like that alternate Barry turns into like an Eobard Thawne character. Like, he looks up so much to this other Barry, and he wants to be him, and he wants to become him. That he becomes
interesting.
Like, I think that could have been a really fun twist on that character.
I had, going into it, always thought that the younger Barry could have been Thawne in disguise. The fact that he was wearing like the black and yellow and stuff like that, like he was just impersonating this younger Barry. Like, maybe he had already killed him or something, but was just pretending to be this younger Barry and stuff like that, and then reveals himself later on and just like, it was me, Barry. Like, that type of thing, because Thawne can change faces. Like, in the comics, he like is supposed to look exactly like he looks exactly like Barry. So that would have been interesting.
That would have been a really cool twist. And again, it could have been like, again, there was a lot cut. I think we're gonna find out throughout the years. Like, they brought in this, and they were doing this.
There's a lot that was cut, and we can even talk about that when we get to cameos and stuff like that too. But
how funny would it be if Ezra Miller's face, he tears it off, and it's Tom Cavanaugh.
Oh gosh. You like my face? No. That
wearing next time.
Flash. That brings us to chat once again. Here's Journey. Who should play Thawne in the movie, and what kind of suit for the appearance? I definitely think like a suit like this for sure. Just very comic-y, very simple. Just nice inverse of an inverse of whatever the current Flash suit is at the time is all I really want. And as for an actor, I had one in mind, but then I kind of changed my mind a little bit. So it's an interesting choice. I don't think I've seen very much. I'll say mine, but do you have one?
I mean, not especially. I mean, like, I've said for years, and like everyone else on the internet has said it, but like, it would be so typecasted, but like, I do like Anthony Starr. Like, Anthony Starr, like, Homelander is literally Thawne. He really is, like, the blonde hair, his personality, his like, I know you haven't watched that show yet, but like, if you've seen the show, if you ever get into it, watch him and think of like this character as a Thawne, and he could play a good Thawne if he didn't mind typecasting.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he's someone new. I'd say. I mean, I guess it also depends what kind of Barry that we're
Right, what kind of Barry that we're dealing with.
Barry? Is it Wally? Is it like, are we starting with an older Barry and then like a young Wally? So maybe you want to cast older.
Yeah.
Just depends, I think.
Yeah. I think the casting that I have is very interesting. I would say if you've ever seen the Netflix show You, Penn Badgley, who plays Joe Goldberg, I think that could be a very interesting casting. He plays that character so well. I think he could play just this like devious Thawne in a very interesting way.
Sure.
That's my fan casting. But
thoughts on Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise. Would it be Tom Cruise on a cruise?
Yes.
Tom Cruise on a Tom Cruise cruise. Tom Cruise on a cruise with Terry Crews.
9-9. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually very curious. I don't know if you saw the article about like Tom Cruise the other day.
Yeah, that he's
like they apparently approached.
Oh, that they approached him for something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that would maybe be like Hal Jordan.
Would he do like a show though? Like an ongoing show?
I don't know.
And
interesting.
I feel like that really is like typecasting. Like that's
yeah. I mean, that's basically just Top Gun. Yeah.
Top Gun. Yeah.
but
I mean, he'd be great. Like he'd be a great Hal Jordan.
Yeah. Or they could just. I mean, James Gunn is friends with Nathan Fillion. Just let him reprise that voice role.
Interesting. Maybe. What about Henry Cavill as Thawne?
How about Henry Cavill as Superman in Superman Legacy? That would be interesting. Back to chat really quick. Defunct. That's all I wanted. Reverse Flash really. Some curiosity from Barry on who the killer is, and him knowing that there's more than he thought to it by the end of the film. Sure. Yeah. I would have liked that curiosity aspect of it just feels weird that Barry, he goes back in time, he saves his mom, he knows that like this small little event caused it, but he doesn't seek out the actual killer. It is something that still bothers me.
Maybe, I've heard some other people say maybe he was afraid he would like mess with the timeline again if he saw who did it. Because
maybe.
I can't imagine seeing my mother's killer and being like, all right, you can just do it. It's fine. Like, I don't know.
I mean, but that's kind of the whole point of Flashpoint is he's got to accept it, but.
And he didn't really.
No.
He ends it still changing the timeline.
He wouldn't have he wouldn't have undid it if this timeline wasn't literally just collapsing.
Yeah.
Or that the multiverse was colliding. And yeah, he still made a slight change, and who's to say that this new timeline he's in doesn't just rip itself apart eventually as well.
Sure.
Before we continue on, the stranger is in the chat. Hello, how are you doing? Says that I love that show. I believe you're most likely talking about You when I mentioned that, or it could be about The Boys. Either way.
Or Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Good choices. And then they said, I think Bill Skarsgård would make a really good Reverse Flash. Interesting casting as well.
I have a theory.
Okay,
so
I'm
end
listening.
Of the movie, right? We got George Clooney in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, oh, it's a brand new timeline. Oh, what's going on? Plot twist. It's actually back to normal, but that's just Thawne dressing up as George Clooney.
Oh my god.
And he thinks it's Batman, but it's really Thawne.
George Clooney is Eobard Thawne. Confirmed. Tell me, Barry, you ever hear of the Bat credit card?
You need.
The Stranger, it's about the UTV series. Yes, it's such a good show. I can't believe we're coming up on the final season already.
I haven't seen one episode.
You should watch it. It's a very good show. You watch You and I'll watch The Boys.
I still got Clone Wars to watch.
Oh yeah, you gotta do that too. You gotta watch Clone Wars, gotta watch Rebels, you gotta catch up before Ahsoka comes out. And then
That's the plan.
I'm hoping to do streams for Ahsoka. I did them back when Mando season 2 was coming out. Those were fun. So I think I'm gonna bring those back for Ahsoka as well. But
I'm down.
back on topic. I've taken us away
We've
for
been
too
all
long.
over the place.
Been all over the place. We're like we've got the mind of like of young Barry.
Yeah.
He's just running all over the place. Also, young Barry sounds like a rapper. Okay, I'm continuing. So our Barry has to get this young Barry his powers. He realizes it's the same day that he's supposed to get his powers back. Gets him his powers. Older Barry loses his powers. Sad times. Main timeline Barry has to teach this younger Barry how to use his powers and just like, how to be the Flash. And then we are searching for Superman because Zod is coming to Earth and all that nonsense. We're kind of like lining up, overlapping with that Man of Steel timeline. And I think it's also very nice, the fact that we're kind of pretty much lining up exactly with the 10-year anniversary of Man of Steel. So it's very fitting that we have a lot of these Man of Steel references. But I also obviously did like the twist that it wasn't Clark that they were searching for, but it was actually Kara, in kind of like a Red Daughter Supergirl type of storyline. She's being held in this like Russian facility. Again, very similar to the Red Daughter storyline, but also a play on where Clark was held by, I believe, the U.S. government in the main Flashpoint storyline.
I do just like quickly want to ask you what your thoughts were on that the like scene that when we found out Barry was like in the fight almost, and he like saves that kid, and he like the father dies. I thought that was a really nice scene. And at first, like, I still thought Black or Dark Flash was going to be Barry, but I was like, could that be like that kid that he saved, and he's like, you didn't save my dad, Flash, I'm gonna kill you or something. I thought it was going to come back in some way,
funny. But... That would be actually very hilarious if that was Thawne.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Oh man, it's like, remember when you were making your first save? It was me, Barry. You saved me, but you couldn't save my dad. So now I'm gonna make your life miserable. I'm gonna push you down the stairs at school. I'm gonna make you late for class.
Oh.
Remember when that car splashed you on the side of the road? I put that puddle there.
It's so good.
Thawne is just a straight up menace. And he definitely 100% did all of those things in the comics. I'm not just making things up on the spot just because they're funny. But we're going to get to, I would say, probably the biggest section of the movie for a lot of people. And that is when main Barry and young Barry go to Wayne Manor seeking out Bruce Wayne, only to find that it's not Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne, but Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne, who is kind of just chilling in Wayne Manor. He's a little bit retired, got the long hair, got the beard flowing and everything like that. Yeah. Kind of almost looking like the dude a little bit. Got his like bro on. There's a fun little fight and everything. With our young Barry's got his powers going, and main Barry's just getting smacked around. But then that's where we get to our timeline explainer, the spaghetti timeline. And this, I think, was also kind of like the movie's version of that classic coffee cup explainer that we got on The Flash, with how time travel works and how, you can go back in time and change something at a specific point, but it creates a ripple effect to not only the future, but also the past. And I liked how it was explained too, how timelines can overlap. So we have the 89 Batman timeline overlapping with the main DCEU Man of Steel timeline, overlapping with this new timeline where Supergirl comes to Earth instead of Superman. How did you feel about that multiversal explainer?
Yeah, it was definitely a very interesting... I thought it was kind of interesting how they merged like time travel with like multiverse. It kind of gave me like Endgame vibes, where like obviously Endgame did, like, it wasn't like the multiverse that they went through, but it was kind of a similar vibe where it's like, oh, it's a whole separate thing where you can kind of do whatever you want over there. But no, I mean, I just think having Michael Keaton like explain the multiverse was very funny. Did they ever explain how he knew about the multiverse? Like how he knew all this stuff, or was he just guessing? I didn't think I caught that.
It's because he's Batman.
Fair enough. That's all we need.
All right, moving on.
No, I kind of just like.
No, I don't think so. They never explained it, at least from what I remember. I just kind of was like, oh, he's Batman. He knows. Of course, he knows.
You know, I like to think that he was part of like a crisis event or something, and he just got like, oh, I guess I'm off on this adventure, and then comes back or something.
We're gonna skip a little bit ahead, really quick, because you just reminded me of something. When we were getting all the cameos and stuff, I would have loved if we would have seen just 89 Batman next to 90s John Wesley Shipp Flash next to like Linda Carter Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And just had like your classic Justice League, and then, you know, maybe do.
Oh, that would have been cool. Yeah.
Like, I know they did. We'll get into that, but I know what they obviously what they did with like bringing Christopher Reeve back and stuff like that. But they could have just done Brandon Routh, because Brandon Routh is Christopher Reeve Superman.
Yep.
And it would have been a real person.
I'm not going to speak on that until we get to it.
Yep.
Because I'll go on a tangent.
But yeah, what could have been? But we basically have this heist to go get Superman, and it ends up to be Kara, Supergirl, in that facility. I loved this whole, you know, breakout scene. I thought it was really cool. We get to see Batman in action. He might be an older Batman, but you know, he's still got some fight left in him. We got to see some cool bat gadgets, the bat ruler. The bat, whatever the explosives were, and he was like, how much do you guys weigh? Which was you know, a reference back to when I think he was using like the grappling hook in one of the classic movies, and he was asking somebody, he's like, how much do you weigh? And it's like, yeah, okay, that'll work, and then do the grappling hook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly as well, when he was like turning up the power on the bomb, I think he turned it up to 11. So, you know, it goes one higher. It goes to 11. So that was pretty fun. They break.
Had the, like, I don't mean to like jump ahead, but we also had the like bag of laughs.
Yes.
That was a reference
yes.
to like, the 89 movie.
Yep. Joker laughs. Is like, this bag of laughs. But I thought that was great. Breaking Supergirl out. Apparently that sequence was a lot longer at one point. Yeah. Probably a lot more like crazy fighting, destruction, all that nonsense going on. But I think what we got was great. It got us to the point that we needed to get, was Supergirl with the team somewhat at the beginning. They give her suit. She powers up, amazes young Barry, and then she dips for a little bit. While she's gone, we get Barry kind of setting up that Flashpoint looking contraption where he's, you know, trying to get his powers back. They zap him. Doesn't work. Luckily, Supergirl to the rescue, comes in, flies him up, lets him get struck by lightning once again.
Mm-hmm.
And as they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. Barry kind of, you know, comes back. Young Barry is with him and everything like that. I think just like the relationship between young Barry and older Barry, like they were like brothers. Like, I know they're the same person, but like they had that like brotherly relationship. It was really cool.
Ezra did a really good job at making them feel like two separate people.
Yeah.
I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but I think this was a really fun way to show Barry's origin story without it being an origin story. Like, we get to see his origin story backwards. Like, it's Barry, like it's older Barry getting to watch younger Barry become the Flash and explain how he got his powers and his flash ring and the like whole lightning and Iris and all these things, and you know, kind of backwards through the lens of younger Barry seeing what his older self becomes. I think that was, again, such a genius way to do it, because we're in the stage where like no one wants to see origin stories anymore. Everyone just wants to like skip all that and get to the fun stuff. Even though this is the first Flash movie ever, so arguably you should have an origin story, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I thought that was cool as well, as to show the origin story for one version of the Flash, but also let our main Flash be like that mentor figure. And it's something that you don't really get to see, is like in the same film, he's inexperienced but also a veteran at the exact same time. It was very interesting, kind of like just like the juxtaposition between those two different versions of the same person.
And it also felt like older Barry was experiencing what we were going through.
Yeah.
League, where it's like,
man, this guy's annoying.
Yeah. And it's cool seeing like him evolve as well. Like he's definitely grown between like Justice League and this movie for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And I think again, just having that younger Barry really does show how much our main Barry has grown from even the first time that we met him. Stranger says, wait, they played stronger when Barry came back. I don't know. I don't remember. I just kind of made that reference. I thought it was funny. But if they did,
no, I don't think so.
That would be very funny.
I will say shout out to you when we were breaking down the trailer. I think the second trailer, you called that Kara was taking Barry up to get like his powers back.
It's like we gotta get him closer.
Yeah, which is like pulled like straight out of the comics. Him like getting strapped down and Batman trying to get his powers back.
He's like, it's not my fault if you die, kid. But at that point, we kind of have our makeshift Justice League assembled. We've got 2 Flashes, we got Supergirl, we got Batman 89, and it's time to go wreck house in the big open no man's land area. And this was a very, very interesting part of the movie for me, because they got very murdery. Like, we literally saw Batman kills, Supergirl obviously kills, and Barry reverse flashed somebody. And I was freaking out. Like, I turned to my brother when we were watching this. I was like, did he just... that guy? Yeah, that happened. That happened.
Is like the Spider-Man like attack mode, where it's like
activate instant kill.
But they're aliens, and it doesn't matter. It wasn't a real person. He doesn't count.
Yeah, it's like come on, Barbie, let's go party. Oh man. And I thought just having the 2 Flashes just like work off of each other, and like the powers, and just like the double takedown moves and everything like that, and also having the orange lightning be split up with the blue lightning, and like when the shot that everybody was referring to in the trailer where they like slide into each other and then they hit the boots together and then they bounce off and everything like that was so cool. I just think, again, the way that they visualized the Flash's powers in this movie worked really cool. So well. I didn't even mind the Emperor Palpatine hand lightning. I thought that was even pretty cool.
Oh no, that was fun.
That was really fun.
Yeah, no. That's like something Barry would do. Like, Barry in this movie is such a nerd. Like, he's the biggest nerd, so I thought that was a lot of fun. And
he's
I
like the Emperor.
Like speed constructs.
That,
Like, that was fun.
We can confirm there were no Speed Force lightsabers.
No, like, nunchucks or ninja stars. I mean, we could still have time, I guess.
Maybe one of these days.
Oh. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so something else in this fight scene, we get a lot more from Supergirl in here. This was kind of her big moment. This was her big action sequence as well. She got to face down Zod. We got that line from the trailers that everybody was always referring to, the whole, what did you do? And it was very impactful in this movie, because that came at a very like emotional scene, because she's like, hey, I was sent here to protect Kal-El, to protect my cousin. Like, where is he? And Zod's like, he gone. I took care of him. He's gone. And that was, I was kind of shocked at that. And then she just goes ballistic. Just does not hold back. And I think that, again, is a very big separation between Supergirl and Superman. Superman is always holding back to some extent. Even in Man of Steel, he was holding back until he was forced to kill Zod. In here, Kara is going for the kill from the beginning.
Yeah.
She's like, not messing around.
Which, I mean, I wonder if that's why she lost. Was maybe because well, I mean, I guess she would probably be weaker at this point than Clark would have been. Because, like, Clark would have been training his whole life, and I guess not training, but, like, you know, he's been exploring the sun, and, you know, he's used to his powers, where Kara's been probably locked up for a good 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I guess that makes sense why she died twice, which kind of shocked about. Like, I wasn't I don't mean to jump forward or anything, but I wasn't expecting the, like, deaths and to see these characters die multiple times.
It's interesting. I kind of felt like they were setting that up. I was like, oh, we're in this big end battle,
Sure.
but like there's no way this big battle's gonna last like 45 minutes, right? Like, that's how much longer I think we had in the movie or something like that. Like, there's got to be some sort of twist here. I was like, there's got to be some extra, like, you know, Groundhog Day time travel-y aspect to it. And that's exactly what we got. That is exactly what we got.
I don't know, like, because, like, we like talked about it a little bit. I figured that I didn't think Zod was going to be the main, because this really was the end of the movie. Like, I thought this may have been like a middle ground part of the film, and then the back half is like Dark Flash. I thought he would have come in and he would have been like the threat. But they kind of just, I don't know.
They kind of combined it all into one. But before we get to that, back to chat really quick. I do miss the fact that everybody with StreamYard can like pull the chats up and everything like that. I'm just a Streamlabs peasant here, and I gotta manually do things. But Defunct, thanks for stopping by. Glad you enjoyed your time here, and that you'll catch the rest on playback. Have a great night, and the stream will be waiting on playback for you. And then Stranger, so everything aside, was this movie worth the 10-year wait? That's an interesting question. Was it worth the 10-year wait? In some respects, yes. I think is like a multiversal spectacle cameo type of thing. I don't think we would have seen a lot of this stuff if it had come out 10 years ago. I don't think we would have gotten a Keaton Batman. I don't think we would have gotten a lot of the cameos that we saw in this movie if it had come out when it was originally supposed to. But the fact that we waited this long, we got the movie that we got, I'm still very happy with it. Again, I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time. Daren, what do you think?
I mean, I think the wait made it worse. Like, I think that 2018 movie would have been a better movie, because that seemed like a very cyborg, like, rogues type movie, and I mean that's kind of the movie I wanted here, I guess. I mean, you know, I think there's so many things about this movie I loved. Again, I didn't mention it too much before, but again, like, just seeing the Flash on like the big screen and seeing like the Speed Force and his mom and the time travel and all these different things and Iris and like that stuff was my favorite stuff here. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing these characters and these things I love so much, on this massive scale. I don't know if it was worth the wait though, personally. I mean, especially just not even just the wait, but all the controversy and all through COVID and I don't think this movie was helped by like Tom Cruise being like, this is a great movie, and all these people being like James Gunn being, this is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, and everyone's like, oh, if James Gunn says it's the greatest superhero ever made, it must be. And I'm not saying it isn't, because I'm here, like, I'm not saying that they're lying, because I've heard a lot of people who love this movie who have been saying it's the best of all time still, and I'm very glad for those people. I'm very happy that people are liking this movie. I think that's great. But for me, I wouldn't say I don't think it was completely worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many regards, it was very much overhyped going into it. It wasn't like that big revolutionary superhero movie that changes everything, that's this super unique, like, never seen before type of thing.
Yes.
But in comparison to the rest of the DCEU, I think it stacks up there as one of the best DCEU projects. Is it one of the best superhero movies ever made? I don't think so. I know a lot of people will think that. I know a lot of people really, really, really love this movie. I really enjoyed it as well. But I just don't think that it can stand up against some of those like great comic book like the greatest comic book films of all time.
Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't hold up in that echelon of films, for me at least.
And I think it might get even worse as we get like Superman Legacy and like Swamp Thing, and it seems like DC might finally, and I'm not saying they haven't been art before, but it seems like they might really like focus on like, hey, we're gonna make just good movies and not like just comic book movies. And again, like comic book movies can be great movies. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it seems like they're getting good writers and good directors and good like artists that make these movies, and I'm so excited. And I think like in comparison, it might make this era of DC look maybe weaker than maybe what it would be otherwise.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think again it'll be looked at as one of the best from the DCEU era, but still not stack up in this new era of DC movies and amongst the greatest as far as comic book films go. But
I am. No, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I am very excited because I think sometime this year I do want to rank all like a bunch of superhero movies. I think this is a big year for superhero movies. Like,
oh yeah,
with like, I'll say Spider-Verse and Guardians did not help this movie at all.
Oh yeah,
like,
no, they're
up there
much
now. Yeah, those are being talked about as some of the greatest ever made, and then you have like the Beetle coming out and the Marvels coming out and Craven, which we all know Craven is going to be top tier cinema.
Oh yeah,
and I'm so excited. Just
right up there with Morbius.
Yeah, I mean, the year isn't even half over. I mean, even games, we got like Spider-Man 2 coming out, which I bet will be great, and a bunch of shows coming out this year that might be great. So yeah, I'm very curious to see like by the end of the year where this movie stacks up among like the like Marvels and like Shazam and all that stuff, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. But speaking of like the DC legacy, we've got a lot of legacy in this movie with the big cameo scenes. So we're at this moment where, Batman has died, Supergirl has died at the hands of Zod, and, all hope seems lost. And both of our berries decide to, take a trip back to that time travel multiversal chrono bowl and try their hand at just going back to the beginning of this fight and just trying it over and over and over again. And they go through so many different instances, and just whatever they do does not work. And then that's how we get kind of the beginnings of the Dark Flash with young Barry, is he's got like this piece of Kryptonian tech that's like lodged in him, and then he uses it as a weapon to kill one of them too. And I was like, oh, that's brutal.
That was cool. Yeah.
That was kind of like the sign for those who didn't know going into the movie that he was going to be the Dark Flash. That was kind of like your first little big hint that like, oh, something's not right here with this Barry. But we're in the Chrono Bowl, and we get so many different cameos. And that's where I think a lot of the reviews going into this movie were like, oh, it's just a big cameo fest. I don't think so. It's a big cameo fest for about 10 minutes. But that's not what the movie's about.
No. I think, if we're comparing it to other like cameo type movies, I think the cameo stuff for me was the weakest stuff of this movie. I really do think so, because especially like I think Crisis did a very similar thing to this, in my opinion, better. About a month or two ago, we had Titans. Weirdly enough, Titans out of all shows, I think that did this thing much better. And then stuff like with like Multiverse of Madness and like Across the Spider-Verse, and we know like Deadpool 3 is happening, and we know like Secret Wars is happening, and like there's so many of these now. And again, I like them sometimes. But I think like we had a really good scene happening where like Dark Flash is here, and he's like, this is what I become. This is the consequences of your actions. I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And then we just cut to cameos. It's a 5-second cameo show, and look at this guy, and look at this guy, and look at this guy, and I think it broke like all the tension that the movie had set up until this point. And it's like, all right, let's see who else they were able to sneak in, and it didn't help that I think a lot of the choices weren't great choices. I'm not saying they were bad, but I mean, especially seeing a lot of the backlash from these scenes. And choices they made, I think it does make that third act less.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that I heard about this movie going into it was that it somewhat falls apart in that third act, and I very much so agree with that. Is it does not have a very strong final act of the movie. It doesn't really have a main villain. It doesn't really have a big climactic fight. The big climactic fight is Dark Flash tries to kill Arbery, and then young Barry hops in front of him, and then they both disappear. Like, that's not really a big fight.
Yeah, I wanted so much more from him. I'm trying to think how I would have done it in a way that that would have made sense here. I'm trying to think, I think maybe they reset the timeline once and it doesn't work and they kill again. And then maybe Barry 2 goes to run off and do it again, and instead of Barry following him, he sees Dark Flash running around and he chases him around. I think this movie really was missing a speedster fight. I really do think that. I think that's what people love most about Flash. It are these massive cool speedster fights, and you ultimately do have a speedster villain in this movie. And even with Zod, Zod's relatively a speedster. Not full on speedster, but he is a I mean, he does have
super speed in some regard, yeah.
So I don't know. I think I just wanted, again, I mentioned this earlier, either focus a lot on Zod and have him because I kind of like the idea of Zod becoming a Flash villain in this movie, and maybe a world where Kara is dead. Now you have to face against me. I am the only hero left on Earth, and I have to take on this giant Kryptonian army by myself. And I think that's an interesting story. There's an interesting story there that I think could be cool, especially with this thing being well, when this thing first happened, I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't confident enough to do anything, but now I am, and now I've grown, and now I've, that could have been cool too if they focused on that. But I don't think they focused on one singular threat, and none of them land. I don't think either Zod or Dark Flash landed for me.
Yeah. Speaking on that multiverse aspect, Stranger brings up Spider-Man No Way Home as another example of a multiverse movie. My thoughts on No Way Home. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think, again, that's another movie that kind of just preys on your nostalgia and uses hey, remember him, remember these characters from better movies, they're all in this movie.
I somewhat agree. I somewhat disagree at the same time, though, because I think where that movie thrives is for me, they aren't just cameos. They are actual characters.
Right. They're not just cameos.
They could have easily just had Andrew Garfield be hey, what's up, buddy, and then swing back through or whatever. Right. But Andrew and Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, they're all real characters, and they all have individual arcs in this movie. Where stuff like this, they're kind of just hey, do you remember him from 15 years ago? He's here for a second. Yeah, no, I think No Way Home, at least for me, did that better. Than this. I
don't know. It's a weird spot for me because in some regards, I almost feel smaller cameos like that, with the fact that they don't really have a massive overall impact. I almost feel that's somewhat better in a way, because then you're just kind of oh, that's a cool thing, move on. It's not oh, remember this villain from the first Spider-Man movie, he was so great in there, we're not going to make a new villain for this movie, we're just going to rip him straight from that one and throw him in here. Not that I had, an issue seeing Green Goblin again, but it just it felt a little bit oh, hey, again, we're taking these aspects from these movies that you remember from when you were younger, from, when you first got into superhero stuff, and instead of making new characters for this movie, instead of making, new villains, new ideas, we're just going to take what's already worked in the past and try to use that again. But
I preferred Green Goblin and no Way Home.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a hot take.
No, definitely not. I think I'm the one with the hot take here. But you know,
How dare you, Tazz? Get out of here. It's my turn now.
Gotta leave my own stream. All right, see you guys. No. But just going through the list of cameos, we have the original TV George Reeves Superman.
Yeah.
We have 66 Adam West Batman. We've got the Christopher Reeve Superman and the Helen Slater Supergirl together. Yeah. And then we get, I think, the biggest cameo, the one that I liked the most. I think the one that a lot of people will like the most is the canceled Tim Burton Superman Lives, Nicolas Cage, Kevin Smith script Superman, coming in here. And we finally get our hashtag mullet for Superman as well. What did you think about that?
I did not think that Nicolas Cage would be my favorite cameo in this movie. Because, like, Nicolas Cage, again, none of these are really a surprise. Like, Nicolas Cage, Christopher Reeve, Adam West were all names I've heard about for years now as, like, possible cameos in this movie. Like, they didn't, not that, like, they outright were out there for people to see, but, like, I think, like, Nicolas Cage we've heard about for a while.
Yeah.
And I think he was my favorite here. He felt like the most creative, and it was kind of nice getting a glimpse at his world to like the point where I was like, I kind of want to see that giant spider more.
Yeah, apparently they were obsessed with that giant spider in that script.
Okay. Yeah, I heard something. I was like,
yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind seeing like a. It's so crazy because apparently they wanted him for Crisis. Apparently they reached out and they wanted to get him for Crisis.
That would have been interesting.
I wonder if they're like, hey, we're actually using this one if you want to back off. I wonder
like,
if he would have done it.
You can't have this character.
How crazy if they would have got Nicolas Cage for a CW appearance. That would be nuts. Oh my gosh.
Stranger in chat says there's going to be a live stream where Nicolas Cage is going to go on and read the script for the movie that was canceled. I think I heard about that. I think it's going to be a Kevin Smith stream because I believe he wrote the script. So if he's going to have Nicolas Cage on there, that'd be very cool. Very interested to see how that goes down.
Like, Elseworld's a thing now, guys. Like,
yeah.
5-6 years from now, can you imagine?
They should just make this movie. They should just make this movie, and it's Burton, so it would technically be in the '89 Batman universe too, maybe.
Yeah.
So then just bring Keaton back as well. Just imagine Michael Keaton next to freaking Nicolas Cage Superman.
That might make a lot of money, actually. I could see that doing well.
James Gunn, hire us, please.
I think just like, I think just for the strangeness of like Nicolas Cage as Superman, we all have to go see this movie.
Yeah.
It could happen. But he was the only cameo I loved here.
Oh yeah. But here's the thing. I think we, as people that follow these types of things, that know about these canceled projects and everything like that, that cameo was put in there for us, but the general audience member is going to be like, why does this long-haired Superman kind of look like Nicolas Cage? Isn't he supposed to be Ghost Rider? Like, I think that's going to be the reaction from a lot of people.
Sure. And I wonder if that's going to be this movie as a whole as well, because I think there's going to be so much that, like, we get. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm taking my mom to see it on Tuesday, and I'm curious. This is someone who's never seen any Batman movie, haven't seen that many Superman movies, who've seen, like, Man of Steel once and none of the other movies. So I'm going to be very curious how this movie, is for someone who is very kind of loose on all these stories and cameos and stuff. Like, I think especially when it comes... I know, like, James Gunn has said, like, you can just watch this movie and that's it. But I don't know if you can watch this movie without seeing, like, Man of Steel. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, Man of Steel definitely enriches the experience of this movie if you know what happened in that film. And again, in many regards, it's like a 10-year anniversary for that, because it's been 10 years since that movie came out. So it does pay a lot of respects to Man of Steel, but does its own take on it. Instead of having Superman, you've got Supergirl now. And you're just watching it all from a different perspective. But again, I don't think it's not required watching. I don't think really any of the DCEU honestly is required watching for this. I think they set the groundwork pretty well for most of it. in some regards, maybe the only thing that you would have had to watch is a version of Justice League. You know, to really get the idea of like, okay, the Flash works with Batman and Wonder Woman and, you know,
Sure.
Aquaman, all this type of stuff, and that's really kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you have just like a like relative idea that like, they're all on a team, like as long as you know that like as long as you know who they are, I think you can kind of go into this movie just like your like animated projects, where it's like, oh yeah, the like Justice League is just a thing here.
Yeah.
You don't have to like see them form.
Yeah. I did also see the argument that this felt like an animated project in many ways. Like it could have been an animated movie, and I agree with that. I think it would be. It does kind of in some ways feel like the plot of an animated film.
Sure.
But anything else on the cameos? I guess one more that we didn't mention. Jay Garrick, who kind of looks like Teddy Sears, but apparently isn't Teddy Sears. That could be a de-aged John Wesley Shipp, but doesn't really look like him either. So it's just probably a generic Jay Garrick,
which is weird. I think we've talked about the whole Grant Gustin stuff a lot, and I would have loved Grant Gustin in here. I think this is like the best place to put like a Grant Gustin cameo in like the future of DC, right? But I get if you want to save Grant Gustin for 15 years when he's a little older and everyone misses him, and we're like, oh, there he is. But I don't know why you wouldn't just do John Wesley Shipp. Like this whole thing is based on like the like legacy of these characters. Like you're bringing in all of these older versions of these characters. I think like not having like a John Wesley Shipp, not having a like Linda Carter in there, I think kind of feels a little weird to me. Like especially John Wesley Shipp. This is a Flash movie. Why not a John Wesley Shipp? That's insane to me.
Yeah, I think John Wesley Shipp, Flash, and Linda Carter Wonder Woman were the two big cameos that I was missing out on in this movie. I felt like they definitely could have been there, but it was just odd not to see them. And it didn't seem like there was any restriction either as far as who Muschietti could use in the movie. Like it seemed like he had free reign on any DC character.
Apparently they had stuff for Grant Gustin, but they didn't put it in, apparently.
Weird.
From what I've heard.
They could have literally just reused that scene from Crisis. Because that's how Ezra's Flash gets the name The Flash.
That would have been great.
That
Honestly, if you wanted, if you really wanted, you could have shoehorned that Crisis cameo in here, and it probably could have.
You could have threw it in somewhere, like before he does Flashpoint. You could have done it after, like.
Oh, that actually would have been cool if like he's running the thing and he's like, "How'd I get here?" or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, just throw it in there somewhere. But like,
I could understand if they want to wait though, like if they want to save that moment, or like your Infinite Crisis or your. Which I think we're getting. I think we will see Grant and like Steven at some point.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I don't think it'll be as soon as a lot of people would hope. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because they're still setting this groundwork for this new DCU, and I think they want to very much so distance themselves from a lot that's come before and really establish this as a new DCU.
Which is smart. I'm at a point where as much as I love what has come before, and I love a lot of these actors, I almost wish it was just a fresh start altogether. Like I almost wish you would drop all the old actors.
Which is why I still think that the end of this movie is a separate universe than we're going to be in at the beginning of the DCU.
I cannot imagine. I think it's so dumb. Causes so many more problems.
Before we move into pretty much the last couple of things in this movie, Stranger does say, to be honest, I did think at some point they would rename it Batman Flashpoint before it released. Yeah, it definitely felt like Andy wanted to make a Batman movie more than a Flash movie, and now he's getting the chance to.
Maybe. You know what I'll say, though, is I think as there is a lot of Batman and Supergirl and Superman stuff, like it still feels like a Flash movie.
It's still like, a very Flash-centric movie.
Yeah, it's still Barry at his core and him as a character, and like it's actually kind of shocking how late Michael comes into this movie. Like it's a good like 50 minutes in, I think.
Yeah.
45, 50 minutes in before we see a Supergirl or before we see a
Yeah.
Batman or Superman or anything, I guess.
But yeah, just we got our cameo fest out of the way. We get our little Dark Flash confrontation, and then Barry has to go, reset everything, go back, undo what he did to stop his mother's death, and that's where we get probably the biggest emotional scene of the entire movie. I see that this is one that kind of collectively everybody has agreed is a very good scene. I thought it was great. It was just that final moment where Barry gets to, share one final time with his mom, and kind of like that final goodbye. And it was very similar to kind of like that final goodbye that he has on the show in many ways, but I think the movie definitely did its own take on that, and it definitely made me pretty emotional in the theater as well.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's one of those moments where I'm like, don't think about the like TV show scene, because like that's arguably for me one of the best TV moments of all time, of him like saying goodbye to like Nora and being like, "It's okay, Mom, it's me, Barry," and like that scene is so good. But this scene is so good in its own right, and it's very different from that scene as well.
Yeah.
And I love how like in every timeline, Nora is just a great person, and it kind of like paralleled this final season where like Nora and like Henry like take Barry in.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like we don't know you, but like you need help, we're gonna help you. And that was very much the scene here where like she didn't know this man. He was having a hard time. He's crying in a grocery store. He's like, "Let me hug you because you need a hug." And like that scene was so good. Like I think it just, I don't know. I just love Nora. Like Nora in this movie was really, really good, and
Yeah.
she had very little screen time, but
Yeah,
I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, I did as well. I think again it was just a nice little goodbye there. And I think it did its job of being a very, very emotional scene and really showing how much Barry having to, accept this fate, this canon event, this fixed point in time. I think they did a very good job at that, but it's not so much a fixed point because Barry can change something here, and he moves the cans from a lower shelf to a higher shelf. So this video footage that they have of Henry Allen at the store later on, he ends up looking up and the camera catches him. So when he gets back to the new timeline because spaghetti, they're able to, use that evidence and get Henry out of prison. I was very shocked about this because it's kind of a big change that wouldn't have happened if Barry didn't go back in time.
Yeah.
But it almost technically wasn't a change because it was something that hadn't happened yet, was the trial hadn't happened yet, and that evidence wasn't presented yet. So maybe that's kind of the little backdoor to be able to do it, because nobody saw that evidence until that next day. In present day.
Yes.
But I think it shows that we still have some changes because we get to the end scene. Bruce Wayne pulls up. It's not Michael Keaton. It's not Ben Affleck. It is the iconic, the legendary.
Oh, wrong one. I thought it was like a drum roll.
Oh,
we need to get like
drum roll,
a drum
please.
roll on here. Yeah.
It's George Clooney Batman. We've talked about this a little bit.
There we go.
Maybe the perceived as the worst interpretation of Batman, and he's now Bruce Wayne, and Ezra as Barry drops an F-bomb as well. So. What I know we've kind of been over this for the most part, but it's just a very interesting spot to leave off the film.
It is interesting kind of hearing that he is the worst like version of Batman and stuff like that. And again, I think he could be great.
Yeah.
Like there's a world where I would love to watch him be able to play this like Batman Beyond type version of this character, and in the future if that's a thing that I want to pull in and do in like a Elseworld type thing. I'm fine with that. I think my main issue just becomes with the issues this creates in just current day confusion, current day like casual audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I just like I had a very small theater turnout. There's probably 5 of us in there. But like I think everyone kind of walking out was just like, what does this mean? Like what why what are we doing here? And like I think I talked about this a little bit. Like I went into this movie not expecting, but thinking like they kind of market this movie as like by the end of this, this is our changing point for what the future of DC is.
Right.
Like we are I went into it thinking, okay, this new timeline that we go back to will be our new timeline. So when when George shows up, was like, is he our Batman? Are we not? What are we doing here? And it was such a jarring ending for me.
Yeah.
And and it's a weird thing because I thought I was like alone in thinking this because I've been seeing a lot of people that love this ending. Like a lot of people are very excited, and again, I think that's a concerning thing because I think people think we're like I think people think he's our Batman now, and that's even more confusing because that's like our 5th Batman, where it's like he's our new Batman. Like you have Michael Keaton, you have Ben Affleck, you have Robert Pattinson. Now you have now you have him, and it's not gonna be none of them. It's probably going to be a new guy altogether, and it's a complicated thing, I think.
Yeah. That kind of brings us to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, is the fact that there were 3 different endings for this movie. One of them had Michael Keaton's Batman come back and Sasha Calle's Supergirl at the courthouse at the end of the movie. A second version of it had Supergirl, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Michael Keaton's Batman at the courthouse. And then the third ending, the one that we currently see in theaters, obviously the George Clooney Batman ending, which is very different from all of these.
Yeah.
And Stranger brought up a very interesting point, saying that Clooney was just a recast version of Michael Keaton's Batman. I think that was what we kind of thought originally, like with Clooney, with Val Kilmer. But the fact now that we've opened up the multiverse, we can almost just say that these are Bruce Waynes of a different Earth. Like Keaton Batman is Batman and Batman Returns. Val Kilmer Batman on his own Earth is Batman Forever. And then Clooney Batman on his own Earth is Batman and Robin. And just somehow that Batman and Robin timeline has now overlapped, spaghettied with this this post Flashpoint timeline, which I think is very interesting. Not the ending that I personally would have liked from these. Again, I think in many ways, either one of those endings would have been a lot better than what we got, just because they would have made more sense. This one is more so just like the big shock value ending.
Yes.
And it just, again, I just don't think that it is going to carry much weight going forward, because I don't feel like we're sticking in this universe. But I think that also brings up an interesting point as well. I saw some people saying that while it's sad that we didn't see Supergirl in this ending, that maybe it's a good thing, because it shows that she's not in this universe and she's free to be in the Woman of Tomorrow movie off in the main DCU timeline now. And with that, I kind of look at this ending a little bit more positively in some regards.
Yeah. Again, this is a hard movie to end, because this is like, even if it wasn't supposed to be, this is kind of our ending to this timeline, to this universe, and it's hard to end a franchise like this, right? It's hard to have what's the final shot of a movie, especially in a Flashpoint movie, if you're not directly going into this new timeline. And I don't know. I almost think I would have preferred if somehow, and I don't know how that works for your overall story, but like, I kind of wish he went back to a status quo. Like he goes back to a relatively similar universe than when he left, with like Ben Affleck and like Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
So if if they want to, they could still go back here and tell Elseworld stories. They
Yeah.
could, in 5 years, be like, you know what, we are returning to like the DCEU timeline. We're gonna give you like a Man of Steel 2 and like a Batman movie if they want to. Like, that's open for them. And they could technically still do that, right? Technically, like Henry Cavill is probably still Superman, stuff like that. But like, do fans want to go back to a world where there's no Ben Affleck Batman? Like, I feel like that's a big drive for so many people, is that Ben Affleck. And I'm not saying he would come back, because it seems like he's pretty much done with that character. But like, who knows? Like 15 years from now, he might be like, you know what? I would like to do Batman again or something. I don't know. I kind of wish they kept that a little bit open for you, again, for like your crises, your multiverse travel movies, and we obviously know that we're getting them. So I do want to ask you though, like this ending kind of being set in its own timeline, its own thing. Do you think this confirms we are done with like Ezra Miller's Flash, or do you think there's still a chance that he carries over into this new timeline?
I mean, if the movie was doing better box office wise, I would have said that I would think that there would be a much more of a possibility for Ezra to come back as the Flash.
Yeah.
But the fact that this ending can be interpreted, that it's its own universe, that Ezra's Flash kind of like just timeline manipulated himself out of main continuity, the fact that this ending can be interpreted that way makes it very, very easy for them to just pick up in the new DCU.
Yes.
And just disregard this movie. And in many aspects just say it doesn't matter. That's just the bookend of that old DCEU.
I think like if they would have like, because I think Flashpoint was a very difficult spot, because like if they used this movie to reset this new timeline, if you got someone new, that would literally be a recast. That wouldn't be like that wouldn't be like a Henry Cavill thing. It's a new version. No, that would have been a recast.
Yeah.
I will say this way. Honestly, right now, I'm not seeing a good reason for you to bring Ezra back. The only good reason is that they like that actor, that they like because he is a good actor. They are a very good actor. So that's the only like positive bringing it back. Like, they have so much negative persona around that, and there's so much like negative press. And the fact this movie's not doing well, I think might be like, well, why not just recast someone completely new for this new timeline of characters? So I think, I was kind of back and forth for a while of like, they might recast, they might not. I think I'm pretty positive now that they won't. And I'm thinking maybe I really think the only people they're going to bring back are the people that James Gunn has worked with. I really think that's the case.
Well, I mean, James Gunn has worked with Ezra in that post-credit scene, or not post-credit scene, but in that one of those end scenes for Peacemaker. Remember, it was Ezra's Flash and Jason Momoa's Aquaman.
Jason Momoa, that's true. But I think Margot Robbie's not going nowhere. I don't think John Cena is obviously not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I guess kind of Blue Beetle, but that seems like it's kind of enough on its own.
Yeah.
Enough it in. You're like Bloodshot.
Sport. No, wait, I don't.
Bloodshot? From the Suicide Squad movie.
Idris Elba's character.
Yeah. I think he might stick around. Maybe Aquaman. Aquaman's. Honestly, I wouldn't if I was them. I would cut all of the like Justice League people out. I think that just makes things way too complicated.
I just think it would be a lot simpler if they said this is a full reboot and we're recasting everybody. As much as I wouldn't like that, it would make so much more sense. At least for the main Justice League, we're recasting everybody.
And then Sasha as well. But Sasha I think is a lot easier too.
I think she's a lot easier to carry over. No,
yeah, she wasn't.
She was never in the main. She was never in main continuity, and the fact that she doesn't come back at the end of this movie makes her very open to being in that Woman of Tomorrow movie, because that's very much so a cosmic space based. She's not even on Earth yet type of thing. So I think that could work out very well. And Stranger has a couple things in chat that relate to this. Says, what do you guys think if the Batgirl movie was actually released? Would it make sense as to where they're going with the Flash? if we had one of these original two endings where Keaton was still Batman, it would make sense because Keaton was supposed to be Batman in the Batgirl movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, the only way... I mean, it's impossible now. Like, it's literally illegal to like, put out that movie. But,
right.
You know, again, like, I could have seen a... And that's how I wish they would have handled it, is them being like, you know what? This is a movie that was planned in a different continuity. We are putting it out to you, but, you know, we are letting you guys know nothing's happening here. This is a one-off thing. This is like an Elseworld story. Here you go. Have fun with it. And this is it. Yeah. Nothing more. Like that's it.
I would like for them to just be more clear as far as where these movies fit.
Yes.
And like where we are in the timeline now.
I think San Diego, we're going to get another James Gunn thing being like, hey, this is our thread line for the next 5 projects or so.
Yeah.
This is here, this is here, this is here. Again, Blue Beetle, I think we're pretty much set. We're like, this is part of our new timeline. All right, that's cool. It's just Aquaman that is just a pain in our butts. Like, it's just...
Yeah. And we can't get rid of him because he comes back in the post-credit scene.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on that too?
My thoughts were, why did I sit through these credits for this? It was a nothing post-credit scene. It didn't need to be there. Like I would have been fine if that was the post-credit scene if we had like a mid-credit scene that actually mattered. But as a post-credit scene, you know, it just didn't seem like it was worth it.
I think currently the Aquaman worst case scenario is it takes place after that scene.
Yeah,
like it takes
place after that scene, but it's on that timeline. But it's in that other world, so it doesn't matter.
That'd be so dumb. That'd be such a terrible, like, because like then we're like, all right, let's go into this new, because like that movie had like, that was weird because that had Ben Affleck, and then it's like, oh, actually,
and then it had
have, like, Michael Keaton,
and then it might not have any Batman in it.
Yeah,
I don't. That could be a whole stream in and of itself. Back to chat, kind of wrapping up the movies side of things. Stranger once again. Sasha Kaye says that she's met with Peter Safran about her future as Supergirl. And quote, "It felt like my whole life was preparing me for this role in a way." Yeah, that was something that we talked about a little bit earlier on in the stream. I think we were both kind of in that camp as like, she definitely needs to come back. I think she was one of the best parts of the movie, if not, you know, my favorite character in the movie outside of just the versions of the Flash that we got. So again, I think it would be a massive, massive loss if she was not brought back in some capacity. I think she needs to just be the Supergirl in Woman of Tomorrow. Like that's my thought on that. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, and just like there's already so many fans of that version. Like I know, I feels like half the people want to get this movie because of her.
Yeah,
and, I hope. I'm curious to see like just that movie in general. I think that's going to be a big highlight for me for this upcoming slate because I don't know. I feel like. I think Supergirl, as much as she already kind of is more of a household name because of like the show and stuff, like I think Supergirl could be massive, man. I really do.
I really enjoyed this new take on the character. She was very different than the TV show take. Not that I didn't enjoy that as well, but I just think this is a very different direction for the character, and I think that she has a lot of potential. And it seems like a lot of other people that saw the movie sort of saw her as the standout. Was like, you know, this is the plot of the movie. This is the real plot right here. But Stranger also says that Paige and Eric had an argument about this, that you guys are saying that James Gunn was cherry picking, where Paige was saying that James Gunn was cherry picking characters, and Eric was saying that he was not. I think that's pretty funny. Where having
those arguments are always a lot of fun.
I did see their stream about that last night. That was very funny. We're not gonna go too deep into that, but I'd say
he is cherry. Just kidding. No,
they were going at it. It was funny.
Oh really? Oh, that's funny. No, I mean that's my only thing against like Sasha is just I can see the fans being like, well, why does she get to stay and then Henry doesn't? I definitely see that camp of
Yeah.
it.
But I mean,
Like, why
we
does
already know
Aquaman get to stay?
yeah, we
Yeah,
already know that there are parts of this old universe carrying over, so why couldn't she carry over?
Sure.
That's my argument there.
Yeah. Oh no. If you are bringing over characters, you bring in Sasha. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you bring in what works. You bring in what's been popular.
Sure. I think like as a fan of this stuff, I love the cherry picking. I like being able to be like, oh yeah, you bring in the best of the best,
Right.
and then knew what didn't work. That's great. I do just think as a casual audience, though, that's very confusing. And I think if you are wanting to start fresh, that isn't the best way to start. Especially when it comes to a show like Peacemaker, where it's like, well, that was part of that thing. Is this not part of this thing too? It's like the whole like Superman and Lois thing, being like, well, we got a John Diggle too, and it's like, okay, I guess you can both have a John Diggle, even though everyone knows him from that thing.
Right. So I guess we're kind of getting towards the end here. I know I've kept you for a long time. We're kind of going into it's pipeline territory here.
I know.
But do you have any just like final overall thoughts on the movie? Again, we're going to talk about this even more on Tuesday afternoon on Party Nation Live on Lance's channel. If you guys want to hear even more of our thoughts. But just final wrap up for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this is again a very crazy movie for me, because again, I've never been so split of me loving so much and also me having so many little issues and things about it. I think, as a DC fan, this was still a lot of fun just to see these characters on screen and seeing this world that I love like on display. I'm excited to see this movie again though, because I think this is going to be a movie that I need to see a second time just to like finalize my opinion on how I feel about this movie. But I would recommend, if you're a DC fan, go see it, go watch it. Support this movie if you want to see more DC movies be made. Because DC's not doing the hottest right now when it comes to money.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my passing word.
Yeah, I would say I, again, really enjoyed this movie. Do I think it's one of the best comic book films ever made? Definitely not. But do I think it's one of the best DCEU films? While it doesn't have crazy competition to go up against, I do still think it does compete up there as one of my favorites and as one of the best in that DCEU world. I think it does do a nice job of kind of, wrapping everything up in the DCEU, kind of, giving us a nice send-off, and then, setting the groundwork slightly for what we could expect in the future, but also leaving it very open-ended as far as where we're going, what the multiverse holds for us in the future with James Gunn and Peter Safran's new vision for the DCEU going forward. I know I did have our DCE rankings saved. I don't know if you want to do them, like just go like rapid fire or.
Yeah, I don't have anywhere to go.
Okay,
so I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. Before we get into that, Stranger saying this was a fantastic stream. Thank you. I appreciate it. You have been amazing as always in chat. I really appreciate the interaction. Thank you. But would you like to go over yours first, or do you want me to do mine first?
You know what? You can go over yours first.
Okay. Okay. We'll do a.
Yeah, I know. Just like our Spider-Man rankings, our rankings are quite different.
Yeah.
On how we feel about it, and that's always very fun. It's always nice to have different opinions.
Yeah.
Some are similar, some are like, oh, like mine's at the bottom and yours are at the top. That's kind of interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get through this pretty quick. Gonna try to just kind of like rapid fire through them.
Okay.
And just kind of explain a little bit. So we'll go top to bottom. Man of Steel is number one for me. Just I think as a film, it's the most well put together out of any of the DCEU films. I think start to finish, it makes sense. It looks incredible, and it sets the groundwork for the whole DCEU going forward. And I just find myself coming back to this one and rewatching it a ton. And I think rewatchability is a very big thing for me when I'm ranking these, and that's kind of why I'd put it at number one. Number 2, Batman v Superman. I know that's kind of maybe a controversial spot to put it in, but I just remember really enjoying the film when it came out. I like, just seeing, this was the first time that we saw Batman and Superman interacting in a movie ever. And it was crazy. And we got our introduction of Wonder Woman. We got the introduction of that guitar riff. Again, it was another just beautiful looking movie. And outside of Batman being a murderer, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Shazam, number 3. I think this is my favorite origin of all the DCEU films. Just felt very much so like a classic, like a classic Raimi Spider-Man film, or just just a nice introduction to this character, a great origin story, a great like coming of age story as well. So that's kind of why Shazam's there at number 3. Wonder Woman number 4, very close in that 3-4 spot, but I think the only reason I would put Wonder Woman at number 4, not number 3, is just it kind of has that third act fall apart syndrome, where you just kind of have that big CGI monster fight at the end. But aside from that, I think again this is one of the best kind of like origin films. I loved this when it first came out in theaters, and it's one that I still go back and watch from time to time as well. Then we've got James Gunn's The Suicide Squad in at number 5. Just a fun film overall. James Gunn is great. He makes great films. This is basically Suicide Squad in the style of Guardians of the Galaxy. If you like the Guardians films, you're gonna love this one. Then I've got our new edition, The Flash, at number 6. Obviously, we just had our whole stream about it. Don't really need to go too deep into it. But this one was kind of tough for me, going back and forth between 6 and 7. But again, with that rewatchability, I think I'd rewatch The Flash over Shazam 2. But that's why they're so close, and I put Shazam 2 at number 7. I think this one got a lot of unnecessary hate when it first came out. I think it's just a fun film. I think it's, again, a fun superhero popcorn flick. Doesn't do as much for me as the first one did, but I still really enjoyed it. I'm gonna get flamed for this, but Zack Snyder's Justice League, number 8. It's great. It's just way too long.
It is very long.
Then I've got the original Suicide Squad, number 9. I thought this movie was fun. It had some great music. I literally saw it twice in theaters. I dragged my mom to the theater to go see this movie. I think we saw it in 3D, maybe. It was fun. That's about as far as I'll go on that one. Then we've got Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn movie. I thought this one was really fun as well. I enjoyed it, but kind of have to put it at number 10, just because we wouldn't have the setup for Harley Quinn without Suicide Squad. So then we got Aquaman. Kind of an interesting spot for it. It was much higher originally for me, but this is just not one that I've found myself going back and rewatching a lot. Not to say it's a bad film. I think it's, again, one of the best kind of like put together films on this list, but it's just not one that I find myself going back and rewatching all that much. Then these last few are kind of the ones that I would consider dislike or not rewatchable. Wonder Woman 1984, it came out in a really odd spot. And it didn't feel very cohesive. The plot was very thin. It didn't really fit into this DCEU very well. It felt very much so like its own thing, and it just brought up more questions than answers.
Kind of filler. in like a weird way.
Yeah. I love this version of Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. It's just sad that she has one incredible movie, one not so great movie, and then just kind of a bunch of cameos. Yeah. But at least we'll always have that guitar riff. And then rounding out the list, your boy, Black Adam, The Rock, caused somehow, you can make a whole video on this, Rock just caused the downfall of the DCEU with his overhyping of Black Adam. And then Theatrical Justice League.
It's rock bottom.
How The Rock destroyed Hollywood. But yeah, Black Adam and then Theatrical Justice League rounding out the bottom of my list. for very obvious reasons. I think that's about it on my list. I've got your rankings pulled up here as well.
Okay.
Gonna transition to them. Then got your film rankings here. So
Okay.
explain them. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm gonna go backward. I'm gonna go bottom to top to make it a little bit more interesting here. Just like last place, I think, obviously there's so much wrong with this movie. I think, just like The Flash, it's cut up so much. There's obviously a whole nother film that was much, much better. There's a lot of just weird, nasty stuff in here, stuff that doesn't make sense. Trying to build a film universe in one singular movie that just dragged it all down for me. I don't love that movie. Next up, I have The Suicide Squad. Not a fan of this film. Not a film that I love. Obviously, there's things in here I like. Like, I love the Ben Affleck Batman stuff in here. I love the Flash stuff in here. I love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I think she's amazing. I actually love Will Smith as Deadshot. But again, this is another movie that felt like they were rushing it, trying to rush this universe. And it all it just feels like a Hollywood scam, I guess, how it ultimately turned out. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Suicide Squad movie. Up next, I have Wonder Woman 1989. I don't hate this movie. I think this movie is the definition of mid. I think it's just a really, really mid movie. There's some really weird stuff in here. The editing is really weird. Again, there's nothing really seems to happen in this movie. It's like they were just like, hey, it feels like this interlude movie where it's like, okay, we're just trying to fill in the side story until we have bigger stuff to tell. They brought back Steve Trevor just to kill him off again, and the villain never felt like Cheetah. I love Cheetah. She didn't do it for me. There's this weird thing where Wonder Woman sleeps with this someone in Trevor's body, and it's like, is that ethical to sleep in a stranger's body? I don't know. That was a weird thing. Didn't love this movie. I love certain elements of this movie, but didn't love the movie. Next up, I have Black Adam. I loved this movie when I first saw it. I thought, this is a fun action movie. This is a fine movie. Nothing wrong with this movie. I just think it could have been a lot better. And, 90% of this movie is just action and fighting and Dwayne Johnson playing The Rock. And as cool as it was seeing characters like Hawkman and Atom Smasher and the JSA and Dr. Fate, I don't think those characters can justify a whole movie like this. Then I have Batman v Superman. This is a weird movie for me because the more I've seen it, the more I do appreciate what this movie is and what it. I will say, and I talked about this throughout the stream. This is not my DC universe. These are not the version of these characters I think when I think of DC. No, I don't think that's a bad thing. That is not a bad thing. They're just not for me. So I've never associated with this version of Superman, this darker, broodier version of Superman. I don't like a Batman that kills. I don't love that they killed Jimmy Olsen in the first 5 minutes of this movie. That crushed me. I don't like that they killed off Robin behind the scenes. Those are things I don't like. But with that being said, I think it's a very well-made movie. Hot take, I like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex. I think he's a really fun Lex. I think he would get a lot less hate if we saw more of him. But he kind of showed, I was a kid, I hated Lex with hair. That boiled me to my core. But, very similar with Flash. A lot of things I like from this movie, a lot of things I don't like. But it is in my bottom half here. Flash, we just talked about it. A lot of good, a lot of bad. It still kind of ranks here the bottom, I guess, as an overall film. Where I think my top 8 are just better start to finish type movies, even if the heights of this movie ranks higher. Number 8, I have Birds of Prey. I love Birds of Prey. I really, really do. When this came out, I adored this movie. I had so much fun with it. Looking back on it, there's some issues. There's some things I wish was done a little bit better. But I've always loved the stories of Harley Quinn being able to escape the Joker and become her own character. I honestly, I think this movie would have been better if it was just called like Harley Quinn, and because I think the Birds of Prey, there's not a lot of them here. They don't get a lot of time to shine, and that's probably an issue.
You just didn't like the long title, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn? That rolls off the tongue so easily, right?
Oh, I know. You should. Yeah, I think you just make this like a Harley Quinn movie, and you're good to go. And don't kill Black Mask. I thought that was kind of dumb. And then Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I talked about this. Me and you talked about this a couple months ago. I love this movie. This movie was made for me. I love these characters. I thought the villains were charming. It's just a fun superhero movie, y'all. Like it's a very fun superhero movie. Like not every superhero movie needs to be mind blowing cinema. Like I love just seeing superheroes do superhero stuff. Number six. Yeah, 6. I have Man of Steel. I'll be honest, just like Batman v Superman, not a big fan of Man of Steel. I've never been a huge fan of this version of Superman. Again, nothing against. I think this could have been a version of Superman I loved if he was given more time to become that version. But he never did. I never thought Superman got that time to shine. But again, just like Batman v Superman, amazingly well made movie. The music is gorgeous. The whole first 20 minutes on Krypton is amazing. Zod is such an incredible villain. So even though this isn't a movie that I love, I cannot put it any lower because I think it's just such a well-made film. Number 5 is Aquaman, one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Similar to Shazam, I just think it's a fun rom-com Jason Momoa superhero movie. I think it's one of the prettiest. I love just the ocean stuff. I love that pretty suit. I love, obviously Amber Heard. There's been a lot of stuff with that actress, but I think she is good in this movie, and I love just exploring Atlanta. It's kind of everything I wanted an Aquaman movie to be, and I think it, to the public eye, transformed who Aquaman is as a character. And it was I'm probably always have a special place in my heart because before this movie I didn't really go to movies. I didn't have money to go to movies, but by this point I had started getting some money, and I saw my first superhero movie on the big screen, and that was Aquaman. So that was a lot of fun. And I always have that memory, of course. Number 4, Wonder Woman, amazing, love that movie. It's groundbreaking. Same as you though, the third act feels like a different film. It feels like it turns into a different kind of movie. Great stuff, but not a great ending. Justice League, Zack Snyder's cut. I'll be honest, I've seen this movie once, and there's a lot of that movie I never rewatched it. But I mean, it's just kind of everything people wanted from that first Justice League movie. It's so much fun getting these characters together. It just felt like a long event. And, it was a weird thing kind of going into this movie because I didn't want this cut. It felt like we were focusing more on the past than moving forward to the future. But when it came out, there was such a cool thing where, all DC fans were like, yeah, this is an event. This is for us. And everyone kind of surrounded around this movie and had a huge hype around this movie that was just so much fun. And, for the first time, I finished this movie, and I'm like, do I like Snyder's DC movies? We ended it, and I'm like, restore the Snyder cut. I'm kind of in that. I, never go as far as a lot of people did, but I'm like, I would like to see what happens next year, because I think the way it ended was very fun. Number 2, Shazam. I love Shazam so much. This is this movie was made for me, and what kid doesn't imagine themselves as a superhero? And I think from start to finish, it's such a well-made, well-thought-out coming-of-age story with just some of the best moments in the entire DCEU. One of my favorite superhero movies ever made, without a doubt. And the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's sequel, prequel thing that he put out, easily probably my top 5 superhero movies of all time. I just fell in love with this movie, just the acting and these characters I fell in love with, and the cinematography and all these different characters, these mash pash of different DC characters that we should hate, that should not work. Peacemaker shouldn't work. Ratcatcher shouldn't work. But I love them all, and I just want to give them all a big hug and just hang out with this crew. And the way it's shot, and just I love James Gunn's style for DC, and it really is the thing where I'm like, yeah, I want more from James Gunn. And obviously not on this list, but if I did put Peacemaker on here, he'd be my number 1. Right next to Suicide Squad. Yeah, I love both Suicide Squad and Peacemaker.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where I'd put Peacemaker on the list. That's why I didn't add it to the list, because I was like, it's a TV show. It's hard to figure out where I'd rank it. It's hard to rank a show amongst movies for me. But it would definitely be somewhere in that top 5 to 7 for sure. It'd be probably somewhere right next to the Suicide Squad, probably like right after the, probably, I guess for me it would be right after the Suicide Squad and right before Flash, most likely. But yeah, with that said, I think I've kept you here long enough. We are approaching the 3-hour mark, a monumental stream, but definitely one that needed to be this long because there was so much to talk about. And, you know, we went on a little bit longer than I was even expecting because we got a lot of chat interaction. So thank you to all of you guys that were here live in the chat interacting with us. I really, really appreciate that. But even if you're here just watching us on playback, thank you for sitting down, for watching, for listening to us just spout nonsense about the Flash movie for 3 hours. Like, that's insane. So with that said, Daren, do you have anything that you'd like to plug before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, I have some upcoming streams this week. Obviously, me and you will be chatting Wednesday night, but Secret Invasion finally comes out, Superman Lois, Gotham Knights, a bunch of stuff. Just a whole bunch of news to talk about. I'm very excited, looking forward to it. And then on Thursday, I'll be doing my own Flash stream with my good buddy, the Red Arrow. We'll be doing a similar stream, probably not 3 hours, because 3 hours is that's a long time. But, you know, he hasn't been on the channel for a while, so I'm very excited to see what all I have left to talk about, because we talked a lot here. So I'll be very curious, and of course I'll have rewatched the film since then, so I'm curious if I'll have any fresh opinions coming out of it the second time.
Very nice, very nice. So if you guys have not already gone and followed or subscribed to Daren, all of his links will be down there in the description. His YouTube, his Twitter, definitely go give him a follow if you guys have not already, but I'm assuming if you're here, you're most likely already following him. And I guess another place that you could see both of us later on this week will be on Lance's channel. We're going to be on Party Nation Live once again on Tuesday afternoon, talking about this Flash movie because there's just so much to talk about there. And I'd say for me, plans for this week, I know we've got penultimate episodes for Superman and Lois and Gotham Knights. Definitely planning on doing something. Might just do a nice chill stream later next weekend, just kind of, you know, just talking about these shows leading into the finales and everything like that. And yeah, just kind of chilling, chilling leading up to the finales, and then I'll most likely have my big breakdowns for those once we get there. But once, yes, I know, it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. We see Stranger, you are still here in chat. Thank you so much. You are the GOAT. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for watching live. If you're watching on playback, thank you. I hope you're doing well in the future. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.